corruption, a deterioration in the rule of law and freedom of expression, insufficient judicial independence, and a lack of media pluralism and trust in state institutions.
The ruling party and its allies dismissed the EU criticism as unfair and politically motivated. The mass protests which erupted after Novi Sad have faded away, at least for now. Opposition hopes are pinned instead on presidential and parliamentary elections, due within the next year, although there's concern about whether they'll be free and fair. In the meantime, activists find different ways of expressing their anger. Every week, many in Novi Sad quietly stop to observe a 16-minute silence at the moment the canopy fell. Others are more vocal. Zaga, the retired schoolteacher who's seen decades of activism, meets regularly with other pensioners to sing protest songs on Belgrade's shopping streets. They write their own lyrics about corruption and dark times and a call to action. This song goes, wake up, something's happening. Don't say you didn't know, you could be sorry later. When you look to the future for Serbia, are you optimistic about the future?
I want to be optimistic. Not giving up is one of my guiding principles. That's something I want to pass on.
That reminded me of Jelena, the young activist I met outside the station at Novi Sad. She too was adamant that Novi Sad needs real justice.
Nothing will be the same in Novi Sad, in Serbia after this, but I think that is a good thing. Because we learn to fight, we learn how to be resistant, and to be honest, this is our last chance. Because I think if we do not manage to win in fight for these people, which is the whole point, in fight for human rights, for human life, then I'm not sure that this would stay a good place for living, that Novi Sad, which was always my favorite city, would be a place for me. So it's not an option, actually.
The feistiness of these two women, generations apart, makes a stark contrast with Diana. She too is determined to fight on, to force someone to take responsibility for her son's death. But she struck me as a woman who's both isolated and totally worn down. Getting answers might help ease her grief, but nothing will bring back her son, Stefan. It's 18 months now since you lost Stefan. Do you feel as though you are able to move on?
No, I won't be able to move on. When I visit Stefan's grave, I talk to him. I ask him for his help. It's very hard even to think about all of this. It's very hard to live with this. Every time I light a candle for him in church, I place it in the space for the living, not the dead. I cannot bring myself to say he's dead. He's alive for me. He lives in the skies above me. That's the way I want to keep thinking of him. I don't think I'll ever be able to come to terms with the fact that he's gone.
That's Assignment from Serbia. I'm Jill McGivering. The producer was Caroline Finnegan.
That was Assignment from the BBC.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in our Studio 15 downtown in the city of Winnipeg, and we are expecting today we could see some sun. I am totally caught up in my headphones. There we go. Welcome to Thursday morning. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Let's say hello to the team today. Mr. Abby Adeyemi, there he is, behind the controls. Abby also covers the forecast, so we'll talk to him shortly. There's Sierra Sanders directing the program. Good morning, Sierra. Sierra will cover your morning commute, hopefully quieter than yesterday. It was busy yesterday. And there's Darren Marash. If you're watching the show on YouTube, say hello to us and say hello to Darren. He's our producer of that stream. Coming up to 6 o'clock, it's 3 minutes to right now. We'll have national and international headlines. First, though, let's go to Heather Wells. She has your daily news headlines from Manitoba.
Good morning. Well, fire crews are battling a house fire in the West End this morning. That fire started just before 5 in the 500 block of Langside. No word yet whether anyone was home at the time, but police say for now they have closed Sargent in both directions between Yonge and Furby. That's even though the fire is on Langside, police have closed Sargent between Yonge and Furby. The provincial government is going to appoint an administrator to oversee operations of Winnipeg Beach. That Interlake Towns Council lost quorum after a councillor there resigned last week, leaving an already shorthanded council with just 2 members. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Weather-wise, specifically sun and cloud today and a high of 11 degrees for Winnipeg, sunny and high of 13 over in Brandon. And in Thompson, sunshine as well, and your high is going to be 3 degrees. So again, hopefully we're going to make this turn and it'll stay with us. We start the show with a fan of the Niverville Nighthawks. So we're going to hear the personal story behind fandom and how she got involved in cheering for the hockey team. We'll also hear what the team means to the community as they get ready to go for the Centennial Cup. In addition, all week we've been hearing about Manitoba schools struggling to accommodate students with complex needs. Today we're going to hear the perspective from an educational assistant, and then we will put all of the concerns we've been hearing to Premier Canoe, who will be here for our regular monthly interview, and that is coming up on the show after 8. So thanks again, once again, for joining us this morning on CBC. World Report is next at 6.
On cue.
I'm Jill Deacon, sitting in for Tom Power. Our Kells are about as big as a Canadian rock band can get. I mean, they sell out arenas. But Max and Mike from the Arkells will tell you why their new tour includes the kind of small venue they started out in. Places like the Legion in Calgary and a little club in Vancouver.
Q this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. The Dutch cruise ship at the center of a Hanta virus outbreak is now heading to the Canary Islands. But there are reports of more possible infections among passengers who disembarked earlier in the voyage, and among those who were never on the ship. So far, there are 8 confirmed or presumed cases, but there are concerns that may grow. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing is following developments this morning. Crystal, we're now hearing of a KLM flight attendant who has fallen ill. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that flight attendant is in hospital in Amsterdam with symptoms of hantavirus. The Dutch Health Ministry says the flight attendant was on the same plane as the 69-year-old woman who died in Johannesburg. Now, the airline, KLM, put out a statement saying that the 69-year-old was on one of their planes, but only briefly. She was not permitted to fly because of her state of health. Now, health authorities are now reaching out to everyone who was a passenger on that flight and asking them to monitor for any possible symptoms.
We're also hearing reports of 2 people in Singapore who were on that cruise who aren't well.
Yeah, so there's 2 individuals aged 67 and 65. They are currently in isolation with hantavirus tests pending. They will, however, regardless, be kept in quarantine for at least 30 days. Both of those people were on the ship at the start of the voyage from Argentina on April 1st. The Communicable Diseases Agency says they were also on the same flight as that 69-year-old woman from St. Helena to Johannesburg.
Thanks very much, Crystal.
You're welcome.
That is the CBC's Crystal Gomansing in London. The federal government is moving to change the process for approving natural resource projects, including pipelines. CBC News has learned Ottawa is going to propose changes that would make it faster and easier to get the green light. As Kate McKenna reports, it would apply to all projects, not just the ones on the government's priority list.
The Carney government is set to release a proposal to speed up natural resource projects and federally assessed projects like ports. It's the next step in its promise to have one review per project and to make final decisions within 2 years, including any proposed pipelines. Sources say Indigenous consultation would remain a requirement and environmental assessments will not be watered down. They say consultations are expected to be launched this week. The full proposal was not shared with CBC News, and sources say things are subject to change. But because this could be a comprehensive process change, the government is planning to consult before tabling any legislation. The federal government did pass a law last year called C5, which allows lawmakers to overrule laws and regulations to fast-track projects deemed to be in the national interest. So far, they've named 15 projects, most of which were already underway. This new proposal is different in that it will affect all projects, not just the ones handpicked by government. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Mexico is launching a trade mission to Canada. It involves hundreds of businesses and meetings over the next couple of days. Mexico and Canada are looking to strengthen bilateral ties ahead of this summer's CUSMA review. The CBC's Jorge Barrera is in Mexico City, speaking to some of the executives involved.
We want to open the doors with different Canadian companies that are interested.
Luis Arzani is Chief Commercial Officer for Group Express International, a logistics company, one of 240 Mexican businesses in Canada, for a 2-day trade mission starting today with stops in Toronto and Montreal.
That's the potential of this mission, that we can try to find a way to integrate directly Canada and Mexico.
The visit follows a Team Canada mission to Mexico in February. This round will see Mexico's Secretary of Economy, Marcelo Ebrard, meeting with Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc for Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement talks.
I think they can confirm that this North American trade agreement should prevail as
Armando Ortega was a Mexican negotiator during North America Free Trade Agreement negotiations in the 1990s. He says bilateral trade has yet to reach its full potential.
The fact that Mexican capital starts to invest in Canada, in my view, will be a game changer.
Fernando Vargas, CEO of digital services firm Bloom White Label Partners, says stronger ties between the two countries can create stability in turbulent economic times.
Both countries are very interested in working with each other.
Mexico's Secretariat of Economy says there are about 1,800 meetings planned over the 2-day visit. Jorge Barrera, CBC News, Mexico City.
Israel is defending its decision to strike Beirut's southern suburbs. Yesterday was the first time the Lebanese capital has been hit since the April ceasefire began. Crews are clawing through the debris of a leveled apartment building. The airstrike in a busy residential area of Beirut targeted a commander of Hezbollah's elite Radwan force. Israeli officials say the operation was necessary to stop planned attacks on their troops. However, the move is being viewed as a major escalation and a clear violation of the month-old truce. A class action lawsuit alleging WestJet did not have adequate harassment procedures and protocols is returning to court. It was put on hold in February when the judge said the plaintiffs did not have enough time to review the terms of the proposed settlement. Caroline Bargut has more on what the court will hear today.
You're fighting against Goliath here, and that's certainly what we experienced.
Mandalena Lewis is the lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit involving about 3,500 female flight attendants. She claims she was sexually assaulted by a WestJet pilot on a layover in Hawaii in 2010. The lawsuit alleges the airline failed its female employees by not having adequate anti-harassment policies in place between April 4, 2016 and February 28, 2021. Today, the judge will review a settlement a decade in the making.
If we are walking away from this and this is a finality that, we know that we fought till the very end for justice.
In February, WestJet offered to pay $4.5 million to class members, but admitted no liability under the terms of the proposed agreement. Lewis accepted WestJet's offer. Some class members did not. They will have 2 days to object in front of a judge who will ultimately decide if the case gets settled or goes to trial. Toby Goldbach is an assistant professor at the University of British Columbia Peter A. Allard School of Law.
The class action mechanism has really taken on this role of addressing social justice issues where the regular, criminal law track or civil litigation has not been adequate to deal with these issues.
Goldbach says cases like this should send a message to companies that there will be repercussions if they don't take sexual harassment seriously. Caroline Bargu, CBC News, Vancouver.
Workers at a private Nova Scotia company responsible for caring for some of the province's most vulnerable people are speaking out. They say longtime staff are leaving. Furious, their employer told them for years their wages were non-taxable. They're also worried the company is hiring replacement workers who can't do the job. Shayna Luck has this CBC News investigation.
There are a critical number of people who are quitting.
Steve Keddy has worked at Ardan Professional Client Care in Nova Scotia's Annapolis Valley for 7 years, but plans to leave. Across the province, Ardan workers are responsible for more than 50 adults with disabilities and children in government care. Each client is placed in a house, generally with 2 staff 24/7. Ardan sources say it's around-the-clock emergency care for clients with issues like extreme schizophrenia and nonverbal autism.
Violence, you encounter people, who are highly agitated.
Recently, a CRA audit caused turmoil among workers. They say for years the company suggested they were like foster parents and their wages weren't taxable. The company even stated that in letters to the workers. But the CRA audit revealed that was wrong. In recent weeks, many workers have left, fearing financial ruin. NDP MLA Kendra Coombs says she's heard from at least 15 who stayed and are working overtime to fill gaps.
Oftentimes without breaks, I've heard like 36 hours without a break.
Finding qualified replacements is a problem, says Keddy. Keddy says until now, experienced workers kept things on the rails.
If you bring someone in brand new who hasn't been in those situations, it's, can potentially be dangerous.
The province said it follows up and corrects anything that could affect safety. It doesn't plan to bring in stricter licensing or training standards for Ardan because it's considered temporary care. Ardan declined to comment on the workers' concerns. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcuso. Welcome to Thursday, or as our team calls it, Junior Friday. Thanks for joining us here on CBC. This is Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM. You also might be catching us on the app and YouTube. We'll get into the weather in a moment. It's supposed to clear today in Winnipeg. This hour on the show, let it begin. Tonight, that is. We're going to talk to a fan of the Niverville Nighthawks. We'll hear a personal story behind how she became a fan as the team goes for the Centennial Cup. They're in PEI for that tournament, so stay tuned. In addition, this hour on the program, how close is the U.S. to ending its war with Iran? We're going to have a closer look at some of the developments you just heard about on World Report. And then a little bit later at 10 to 7, if you write an email to the Prime Minister, how would you feel about getting a response from an AI assistant? That's something the federal government is considering. We'll have a look at what their plan is. Heather Wells is here now with our Manitoba headlines this morning. Hi there.
Hi there. Good morning. Well, fire crews are battling a house fire in the West End this morning. Police tell me it started at about 4:45. It's in the 500 block of Langside. We don't know at this point if there was anyone in the house at the time. For now, police have closed Sargent in both directions between Yonge and Furby. So even though the fire is on Langside, it is Sargent that is closed between Yonge and Furby. Sand mining opponents are upset a provincial bureaucrat took part in the same U.S. trade delegation as a mining company, CO Silica. A CO Silica executive and a Manitoba deputy minister went to Philadelphia in April for a World Trade Center business conference. And a woman, Tangi Bell, chairs a group opposed to sand mining in Springfield, Fairfield and says this should not have happened while the province is reviewing a CO Silica license application. I'll be back with more on that coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Okay, thanks, Heather Wells. Heather's with us through the morning, of course. Abby, we have a lousy temperature in Winnipeg, and we're actually the warm spot in the province.
I know, Marcy. Just looking at this significant shift in this spring-like conditions that we're getting with this high pressure moving in, it's definitely going to be pushing away those flurries that we've been experiencing for the last 2 days or so, and those noticeable chills in the morning. We see the southern part of the province from today beginning to warm into double digits with widespread sunshine, and I'm already noticing that in most of the regions. While the northern part, we're seeing sunshine there, but some areas still cooler with snow falling in Churchill at this time, and of course we get some drifts there. For the Red River Valley region at this time, the forecast brings a mix of sun and clouds that will clear to fully sunny skies by the morning. We're looking at current temperatures now. This is where that divide begins to happen. At the Forks, we're seeing -1 there. And then for folks near the airport, you will be noticing it's -5. So, but still partly cloudy skies, sunshine on its way. But we will see temperatures set to quickly climb to the mid, numbers. Like we'll get to see most of the regions getting close to 15 degrees as we get into the weekend. But for Winnipeg today, we're warming up to 11. Similar conditions across the southern regions, -1s to -9s we're seeing. I noticed frost this morning, but that should dissipate as the sun makes its appearance. For now, the Parkland region, we're looking at temperatures near -7, while the Pembina and the Westman region, we're seeing temperatures -6 to -9 in the area. Up north, we're also seeing -7, and we're seeing temperatures close to 9 degrees for Thompson, Flin Flon area. While for the Churchill area, we're looking at drifting snow with -8 at this time, and the high would be -2. So I see more like a beautiful spring day ahead with sunshine dominating most of the regions in the southern part of the province and even spreading into the north, with the snow still continuing in Churchill area.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Sierra with the commute.
Hi, Marcy. Good morning. As we heard in Heather's headlines there, crews are dealing with a fire there, so they have closed Sargent there between Yonge and Furby due to a fire on Langside. So even though that fire is on Langside, they have closed Sargent between Yonge and Furby. So something to keep in mind here early on your commute. But if there's something that gets in your way or something that's popped up, give me a call on that commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, it is a pretty exciting time if you live in the community of Niverville, which is, of course, just about 45 minutes, actually less than that, probably about half an hour, right? Southeast of Winnipeg. The Niverville Nighthawks are representing Manitoba in the Canadian Junior Hockey League Centennial Cup. It does start today in a Summerside PEI. Nighthawks fan Melanie Morant is up early. She's been following the team this season, and she's pretty excited to see them play in the championship games with the rest of the hockey fans there, and she's up to tell us about it. Good morning.
Good morning.
How'd you become a fan of this team?
So my boyfriend is a huge fan, and so he took me on our first date to the Niverville Arena to watch them play. And it was really good hockey, and I just really enjoyed it, and we kept going back, and now we have season tickets for next year.
Totally got you hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was this your first year then, or was this like a couple years ago when the team started?
He's been a fan since the team started. I believe it was 22-23 that they started in Niverville. But I was familiar with, the league with Steinbach Pistons playing. So, but no, I really enjoyed it. And it's really good hockey. The goalie's amazing. The fans, the community that comes together with it. It's just something, it's a great feeling when you're there.
No doubt. And how did it feel for you when they got into they won everything, and won their way into into this championship that starts today?
It's very exciting. We're hopefully going to be at Smitty's in Niverville to watch it this evening. It's just so great to see the community come together and watch them get this far. We were able to watch some of the playoffs locally in Niverville against Verdun, so that was exciting as well. The playoffs.
Do you wear a jersey?
So yeah, hopefully they bring home another cup.
No doubt. Do you wear a jersey, Melanie, or do you have a favorite player? You mentioned you think there's really good goaltending, but I'm wondering who your favorite player might be.
It would be the goalie. It would be Austin Dubinsky.
Yeah.
They call him a doobie. So I have some hoodies and hats and some swag, and my boyfriend has a couple jerseys. So yeah.
What's it like around town? Because I know that, we do a lot of stories about hockey in this country and in Manitoba, of course. But I'm not sure if people can really, if they've lived in cities, even like Winnipeg, right? It's different with the Jets. You feel it, but it's different. When you're in a town, when you're in a community like Niverville or up in Dauphin, or if you're over, there's a number of different places I could name. Flin Flon right now, of course. What does it feel like to have, like, how personal is it? You know what I mean? Like,
it's very personal. You go to the store and everyone's wearing Nighthawks gear, and you kind of just see it locally. As well, the Smitty's restaurant does, when they win a game, if you go the next day, they have a pancake breakfast that they give. If you have your ticket, there's just a lot of community-based stands, and it's just great to see.
What's the response from the players to that kind of support?
They're there. They show up. They're there. They had an autograph session the other night. They are very interactive with the fans as well.
How do you feel about the Nighthawks' chances in this? Like, people should understand they're not going to PEI to be in a best-of-7 series for the Cup. This is a whole tournament now that you guys have to sort of now watch another tournament and see if they'll make it through.
Yeah, I'm excited. I hope they bring home the Cup. We're supporting them.
Do you know who their toughest competition is going to be there? Or are you just sort of learning the teams now that have made the cut?
I'm just learning myself, so I don't have any. I guess predicament or vision or whatever you want to say.
Did you play hockey at all as well, or Melanie, or?
No, I grew up with hockey. Though I grew up in St. Anne, and my uncles played hockey, and my cousins played hockey, and a lot of my friends, like nephews, play hockey. So I was watching hockey locally as well here, St. Malo, Brokery, the other small towns.
Yeah, no doubt. It is sort of all around us, isn't it? I can't skate backwards, but my dad has lost teeth due to hockey, and would come home, even play till he was an adult. I remember him just loving the game. So where are you going to watch tonight? You said Smitty's. I should ask then, how many people do you think it's going to be packed in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it will be.
Do you have to get there early, or what? What time are you going?
Well, I think I'm going to try to be there for 5. I think the game starts at 5:30.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Thanks for being up early with us, especially because you're going to have a late night. And good luck to your team from Niverville. Appreciate hearing how you became a fan. And I love, hearing about all the how the community is going to be coming together through this weekend.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Yeah, you as well. That is a Niverville Nighthawks fan. There are a lot of them. Melanie Morant. The first Nighthawks game of the tournament is tonight. She's right. It is at 5:30 our time. 7:30 in PEI, where the team is playing the tournament. You can stream it live on hnlive.ca. How's everybody doing this Thursday morning? Hoping for warmer weather. I know people are now eyeing up May long weekend, right? I was listening to someone yesterday talking about having camping plans and wondering if it's going to go below zero in Manitoba out in a tent. Hopefully by the time we get to next weekend, we'll be a little bit better here, rather. But it is still below zero right now. It's -1 in the downtown right now, just outside our CBC studios. We are expecting the sunshine to come through this morning, though, with a nice high of 11 degrees. We'll take it. Next on the show, let's turn to international news. Iran says it's reviewing a new U.S. proposal to end the war. The news site Axios is reporting that a one-page memorandum of understanding is close to being released. Now, this could launch a 30-day period of talks toward a broader deal. Wesley Wark is a senior fellow at CIGI and a fellow with the Balsillie School of International Affairs, and joins us now on Zoom, actually. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Marcy. Nice to be with you.
So, Trump has said so many times the deal is close. I've also noticed that administration is now changing their language. Instead of saying war, they're now saying this operation's over. Now we're going for this operation. How much closer are we, in your view, to actually seeing something signed?
Marcy, I think we're stumbling around in what I would call a fog of peace. We may be closer to a peace deal, but the clear signal of that, which would be negotiating teams getting back on airplanes and heading to in-person discussions, presumably in Pakistan again, we haven't yet seen that. Trump has said on Truth Social that he thinks the deal is close, but he's also said it depends on the Iranians agreeing to what the Iranians agree to. So who knows what that means? And of course, hanging over all of this is the threat of the resumption of U.S. military strikes on Iran, and a threat from Tehran that they could also carry out their own strikes in the Gulf or against shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. So we're in I think, a very tenuous period. The baseline is that I think both Iran and the United States want to come to a negotiating table again. So that's the good thing. But whether they will be able to do that in the near future, I think remains to be seen.
What reassurances is Iran looking for to sign something, and what does the States want?
So there are two key issues, and they've been present really from the beginning. One is around Iran's uranium enrichment and its nuclear weapons program. This is an absolute red line for the United States. It wants Iran never to have a nuclear weapon. The Trump administration and other global powers have made that clear as well, including Canada. But Iran wants to maintain an enrichment program as a kind of deterrence. So whether they can reach a compromise on that remains to be seen. There's some indications in the Axios report that you mentioned that there may be some willingness to give on that and reimpose a moratorium of a kind that actually the Obama administration negotiated back in 2015. So that'd be a difficult look for the Trump administration to say, okay, we're going back to an Obama deal that we broke in our first term. But nevertheless, that may be what they're facing. There's also the Strait of Hormuz, which is a big question mark hanging over negotiations. Both sides want to see it reopened, but on whose terms? That remains very unclear. Iran now wants to kind of instate some kind of control over shipping moving through that corridor, which is vital really for the world's economy. So, there are very, very difficult issues to be confronted here. And although the memorandum that's been leaked to the press talks about a 30-day period to resolve them, I don't think anybody imagines that it'll be done in 30 days, even if it gets started.
Iran's foreign minister, meantime, met with his Chinese counterpart. Trump is scheduled to go to China next week. What role could China play, do you think, in the future of a potential resolution?
Well, I think the reality is that China's not going to want to step to center stage and be seen as the country, that's responsible for bringing an end to this war. They didn't start it. There's not much diplomatic gain for them there. But I'm sure China and many other countries are exerting behind the scenes, if you like, pressure on both belligerent parties to say this war has got to stop. You've got to find a route to some kind of permanent end to these talks. So pressure behind the scenes, but the reality is that it's up at the end of the day to both Tehran and Washington to decide that this conflict has to end, and I don't think any external pressure is going to have much of an impact on those decisions in Tehran and Washington.
All right, Wesley Wark, thank you very much for your time this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks, Marcy. Great to be with you.
An update from Wesley Wark there, senior fellow at CIGI and fellow with the Balsillie School of International Affairs. We did reach him this morning in Ottawa. As you know, CBC continues to cover what's happening, and you can hear the latest on World Report at the top of the clock or anytime online at cbc.ca. I'm Marcy Marcuso. We're live in downtown Winnipeg this morning, as we are each and every morning. I should mention we just had an interview about Niverville, and we didn't mention that we're going to Niverville. So every month, Corey Funk and I go on location. We choose a community studio, I like to call it, and sometimes it's a community outside of Winnipeg. So we have decided as a team, and that is with Darren Marash and with Abby Adiyemi, we went out and had a team meeting, and we thought, let's go to Niverville. There's so much going on there. So we will do that in the month of May. If you have a story to pitch, 788-3205. You can also write to us at radio893@cbc.ca. Some local music now to get us to your local news at 6:30. Here's Winnipeg-based artist Tyler Del Pino and an acoustic track called Patchwork.
She's a runner, always 1 foot out the door, a single mother before she turns 24. She wears a coat around that's been held back, it shows. That's just her life and how it goes. She's a beggar, serving food for a pocket of change. She's a dreamer, writing songs longs for a ticket to fame, and she tries her best to give that boy the world she wants for him. But it's hard with only pennies coming in. She feels cold when she wears that jacket, covers her face so the tears don't show. She hates all the repairs that happened, different squares hiding every hole. Cause you don't understand how to heal when you're broke. Yeah, we all got a past that comes with a lot of hurt and a little bit of patchwork. She's a lover, but he took full advantage of her. A survivor from the lines that he liked to blur. She tried to move on, mend the holes he left inside her heart. But there's always a reminder from a scar. She feels cold when she wears that jacket, covers her face so the tears don't show. She hates all the repairs that happened, different squares hiding every hole. Cause you don't understand how to heal when you're broke. Yeah, we all got a past that comes with a lot of hurt and a little bit of patchwork. A little bit of patchwork. Yeah, she's a fighter and she'll never stop punching. Yeah, she's a fighter and she won't go quiet. She's got a fire in her heart burning. Most days that's her only lie. She feels cold when she wears that jacket, covers her face so the tears don't show. She hates all the repairs that happen, different squares hiding every hole. Cause you don't understand how to heal when you're broke. Yeah, we all got a past that comes with a lot of hurt and a little bit of patchwork.
Patchwork from Tyler Del Pino, local artist. You might have caught Tyler recently at the Park Theatre at a show on April 16th. You have to watch for the summer schedule. It's kind of nice to be talking about summer schedules, right? Even though it doesn't feel like it out there. Even when I was mentioning camping earlier in May Long Weekend, I'm like, oh yeah, I have to remind myself it's that time of year because it's so chilly. Coming up, we have business news here on CBC's Information Radio on your morning show. Christley Ramlicam will join us as always. Today she's talking about the Canadian aviation industry, which is about to get a multi-billion-dollar boon. So we'll find out what that will mean. Right now, though, your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30 it is -1. But is spring actually going to spring today? Seems so. At least we hit the double digits, a high in Winnipeg of 11 as the sky clears out. Mostly sunny later today. People opposed to sand extraction in Springfield are concerned a senior Manitoba official took part in a U.S. trade delegation with sand mining company CO Silica. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
The optics are really bad.
Taji Bell chairs Our Line in the Sand, a group opposed to mining company CO Silica's plans to drill for sand in the arm of Springfield. Manitoba is reviewing a second license application by the company. Bell's concerned a CU executive and a deputy minister in the NDP government took part in the same delegation to a business conference in Philadelphia. Bell says the licensing process is now compromised. Dawson Trail MLA Bob Lagasse, an independent who represents the mining site, also called the co-participation of the province and CO Silica unacceptable.
If they're going on a trip with them, are they then lobbying the government to do this project?
The NDP government says there were no meetings with CO Silica in Philadelphia. The trip was organized by the World Trade Center in Winnipeg. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Fire crews are battling a house fire in the West End this morning. That fire started around 4:45 in the 500 block of Langside. We still have no word whether anyone was in the house at the time. Police, for now, have closed Sargent in both directions between Yonge and Furby. The provincial government is going to appoint an administrator to oversee the operations of Winnipeg Beach. That Interlake Towns Council lost quorum after Councillor Doug Jarvis resigned last week. That left the already shorthanded council with only 2 members instead of the full complement of 5. Pam Jackson was mayor of Winnipeg Beach until 2024. She says some of the 1,500 people who live in the resort town feel they have been left in the dark.
Unfortunately, over the last number of months, there's been no open discussion on council. I think meetings have been less than a half an hour, and I believe that most discussion is happening behind closed doors. So we really don't know what the issues are. We really don't know why Councillor Jarvis felt like he had to walk away.
The province says it is still working to confirm the administrator's appointment. It will remain in place until a new council is sworn in after the town's regularly scheduled election on July 24th. The federal government is going to move to fast-track all natural resource projects. 2 federal sources tell CBC the Carney government will shift the rules even for proposals that aren't on the list of major projects of national interest. Those projects were announced last year as special priorities. These new regulations will still include a mandatory consultation with Indigenous people. The sources say an official announcement will happen later this week. U.S. President Donald Trump predicts a quick end to the war as he seeks to end the stalemate over the Strait of Hormuz and Iran's nuclear program. Trump spoke during a telephone rally last night for a Republican candidate for governor in Georgia.
We cannot allow them to have a nuclear weapon. So I think most people that understand that, they understand that what we're doing is right. It'll be over quickly.
Iran said yesterday it was reviewing a U.S. peace proposal that sources said would formally end the war while leaving unresolved key American demands Iran suspend its nuclear program and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. expects a response within the next day or 2. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A pair of Manitoba bowlers are national champions. Logan Newton and Tanner Barber winning gold in the senior boys doubles division at the Youth Bowl Canada National Championships in Winnipeg. Barber says the victory was extra special after years of competing against Newton before finally making the provincial team together.
So satisfying to finally get it done. We've been trying to make a provincial team for the longest time now, and I've been coming silver to him for years and years and years. And now I finally get to be on a team with them, and we got the job done.
The pair's path to victory got a big boost Tuesday when Newton rolled just the second 450-point perfect game in the 62-year history of the Nationals. And one of the biggest names in Punjabi music, Diljit Dosanjh, is performing in Winnipeg tonight, and 2 of his biggest fans will be sitting in front row. Joban Preet and Trimam Preet Singh Rakra are looking forward to paying homage to their favorite artist. Dojan turned heads with his iconic outfit at the Met Gala in New York in 2025. Trimam Preet says they hope Dosanjh notices their replicated look.
The dress is basically a copy of the old king that used to rule over a certain area of Punjab. So he is wearing the same copy of that dress. So we are basically copying his dress and we're gonna wear it to the show.
When Dosanjh performed at Canada Life Centre in 2024, Joban Preet and Trimam Preet were invited on stage to dance with him, and they hope to do that again this year. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
They put a lot of effort into matching that outfit.
No kidding.
I was looking at the pictures on our website, and it's like, that's a lot. It's not just sort of the same color and the same dress, but they've got all the same jewelry on and everything. It's very cool.
Amazing.
Yep. Hopefully they'll be dancing on stage tonight, and someone will think to send us the video or the sound. I'd love to have that for tomorrow, right? Fun stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you never heard Diljeet's music, and you probably have because he performed at the Junos a number of years ago too, right? But super good, super fun. We played a track last week, so I suspect it's going to be pretty busy over there tonight. If not, I haven't checked if it's sold out. All right, let's get into the regional forecast. Abby is here to tell us what's going on.
Yeah, Marcy, we're seeing the shift we've been waiting for finally. Well, the southern part of the province begins to warm to those double digits, and then we drop to single digits before we stay steady on the double digits into summer. We just need to deal with like the tail end of the low pressure we're getting, and this high pressure system clears away those system. For the Red River Valley region at this time, Winnipeg and nearby, we're going to be seeing a mix of sun and clouds, which will clear to fully sunny skies as we get into the morning. We're already seeing the sun crack through in the downtown area here. Now, downtown, we're looking at temperatures hovering around -1 and 0. And then at the airport, we're tracking -5 there. Partly cloudy conditions, it's reporting. Temperatures set to climb to a breezy high of, let's just call it 11 today under some sunny conditions. And across the southern regions, in the Pembina Valley region and the Westman region, from Morden all the way towards Brandon, we're seeing temperatures between -6 and -11 with mainly sunny skies in the forecast. Most of the regions will get to 13 degrees later. For the Parkland and Interlake regions, from Dauphin, tracking it all the way towards Gimli, temperatures hovering near -7 at this time. We're seeing clear skies there. Sunrise also already made its appearance with lots of sunshine in the forecast. Highs will be between 12 degrees and 10 degrees, depending on where you are. For the northern part of the province, the Par, Flin Flon, both areas enjoying lots of sunshine at this time. Current temperatures near -6, warming up to 10 degrees later, while around Thompson, where we're seeing -8, Lean Lake -10, and Gillen -4. These regions are waking up to sunshine also. Highs will be between 1 degree and 7. Then for Tudula Lake, which happens to be the cold spot in the province, we're looking at -13 there, mainly cloudy skies. There's a good chance of flurries late this morning into the afternoon in the forecast, and the highs expected to warm up to 3 degrees. And then for the York region and Churchill, we're seeing -8, light snow and drifting snow still making its way towards that region as the system clears out.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at a high of -2 today. Current temperature there, -8.
I've got something for Darren to shoot here. So this camera here that usually shoots Sierra, I don't know if we can actually show this mug if I hold it up here.
This one?
Yeah.
This
here.
one?
This one. Is it that one?
No, the one across of you, Marcy.
Oh, I don't know. I'm in the wrong. Oh, we won't see it close
that's
enough. Okay, so while Sierra's talking, let's close up on this. Can we do that, Darren? We cut to Sierra and then close up on this, and then I'll talk about what it is. That might work. Okay, I'm going to let Darren play with that because you can barely see it. So. What I'm trying to say, radio listeners are going to see this. Years ago, one of my old directors brought me this. It's a little person, and she's sitting, and she's just like losing her mind, right, in a moment of stress. And there's a dark cloud over her, raining just on her, and she's going, "Rah!" Oh, look, thank you, Darren. Darren pulled it up so that if you're watching on YouTube, you can actually properly see this. Look, isn't she cute? She's so stressed out. I thought to myself, she bought me that because, the job can be very stressful in moments, live radio every day, right? But she, which I thought was funny. However, this kind of is like, if Abby tells the forecast, this is how I've been feeling every day. When you keep saying -1, snowing. Yesterday was the worst. How did you feel yesterday, Abby? Did you feel like this? I did.
Well, it's going to be a beautiful spring day today, Marcy. There's
look
sunshine
at, he's
outside.
upset. He's taking it personally. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. But you have the worst message.
I hear people tell me, make it go away. And I'm like, I'm just the messenger.
I know you are. But seriously, right? It's the collective mood of Manitoba. We do have issues in traffic we should get to now. Sierra Sanders has been waiting to tell us about them, and they're related to a bit of what we heard in the news, right?
Yeah, for sure. So as you've been hearing in the news throughout the morning so far, emergency crews are dealing with a fire there on Langside, but they have closed Sargent in both directions due between Yonge and Furby there. And I actually got an update from our reporter Megan Ketchison, who is in the area keeping an eye on things, and she said Sargent is definitely still closed there between Yonge and Furby. Lots of emergency crews on the scene dealing with that fire, as that fire is closer to Sargent than it is to the other side there. So keep that in mind if you are driving in that area this morning. As well, something to note, Chief Peguis and Lachemaudière, there's a stalled vehicle in the northbound left turn lane. So that turn lane is blocked there. So a few things to keep in mind on your commute so far. But if something new has popped up, I'd love to hear about it. That number to call is 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks, Sierra Sanders. Let's go to Chrisley Ramlakan. She's here with our business news. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So the Canadian aviation industry is about to get a multi-billion-dollar loan. I shouldn't say loan, boon. What is this?
Yes. So Airbus Canada has signed a deal to supply AirAsia with a massive order of 150 of its Canadian-made A220 jets. So the agreement with the Malaysian airline marks the largest single firm order for the planes in the manufacturer's history. And they are assembled right here in Canada, of course, north of Montreal in Mirabel, Quebec. And the first aircraft is expected in 2028. So for more on this, here is John Graddick, who teaches aviation management at McGill University.
It's a very fickle business. And I think that, we're seeing AirAsia starting to park airplanes as a result of fuel problems these days in terms of availability and in terms of price. So they're adjusting it, that short-term reaction to what's going on in the industry. But they are a successful business. They are the largest ULCC, ultra low-cost carrier in Asia. They've really built Kuala Lumpur Airport up as a super hub.
And AirAsia's CEO said crises are an opportunity to make bold decisions and wars will not go on forever, referring to the conflict in the Middle East and the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz that has sent jet fuel prices soaring. And Prime Minister Mark Carney framed the deal as an example of the benefits that can flow from diversifying trade beyond the United States. So in a time of tariffs and a ruptured world order, he said the agreement strengthens links between Canada and Southeast Asian countries.
Let's go to another story about millennials, apparently who are postponing major life milestones, according to a new report from StatsCan.
Yes. So this study examines living arrangements and home ownership across 3 generations. So millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers when they were ages 25 to 39. And StatsCan says housing affordability is a concern, of course, for many younger Canadians, and that home ownership rates have been declining since 2011, while rental markets have posed financial challenges for a lot of young renters in recent years. So it found in 2021, the proportion of millennials living with at least one parent was nearly twice that of baby boomers in 1991. And the proportion was highest in Toronto and Vancouver, the 2 most expensive housing markets. And as more young adults lived with their parents longer, millennials had a lower rate of home ownership in 2021 than their Gen X counterparts in 2006 and baby boomer counterparts in 1991 as well again. So the decrease in the home ownership rate for millennials was most pronounced in Halifax, Toronto, there in Winnipeg, and Vancouver. And the cost of housing in Canada has skyrocketed relative to wages over time. So lower-end homes have increased by more than 200% since just 2024, while young dual-earner household incomes grew by just 76%. And that's according to a recent CBC News analysis. So obviously wages not keeping up with the price of homes. And even though house prices have begun to dip, so far it hasn't been enough to let first-time buyers into the market.
If people want to check out one of our podcast episodes this year, This is Manitoba is the local podcast. You can find it on YouTube, and you can also find it online on the CBC Listen app. I just want to mention it because we actually did a whole episode specific to Winnipeg on this and reiterating what you're saying. The title of it was, I think, Can You Still Get a Starter Home? Is there such a thing as a starter home in Winnipeg? Yeah. So before you go this morning, Canadian businesses removing energy drinks from their shelves. Why are they doing it?
Yes. So a Quebec City-based pharmacy chain says it's doing this amid growing calls for the Quebec government to ban the sale of the high caffeine beverages to children. So the Family Prix chain, which includes 455 pharmacies in Quebec and New Brunswick, says it is withdrawing energy drinks from its stores in both provinces. The business says it won't sell the beverages until public authorities establish more regulated access parameters for these products. And the move comes as Quebec's Order of Pharmacists has joined the movement to have the sale of energy drinks restricted to those 16 and over. And the family of a 15-year-old who died after drinking a can of Red Bull while on ADHD medication in 2024 has been pressuring the provincial government to ban energy drinks for children under 16. So a coroner's report said the combination of the medication and the caffeine likely caused arrhythmia that led to his sudden death. Meanwhile, the Canadian Beverages Association, a lobby group that advocates for the non-alcoholic beverage industry, opposes a blanket ban. It argues that energy drinks are already highly regulated by Health Canada, which imposes limits on caffeine content and has made cautionary labels mandatory.
All right, Crystalie, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
That's business news for this May 7th with Crystalie Ramlakan. Well, if you write an email to the Prime Minister, how would you feel about getting a response from an AI assistant? In a couple of minutes, we're going to talk about that because it's something the federal government is considering. Right now, though, let's take you into a story you might have heard in our local news this week. Some children living in Winnipeg now attend a school bearing the spirit name of late Judge and Senator Maurice Sinclair. École Sage Creek Buena Vista has changed its name to École Mijana Gijek. A ceremony was held last night to acknowledge the name change, and Radio Canada's Morgan Knoll was at the ceremony and spoke with Nigon Sinclair, who is, of course, the son of Maurice Sinclair. She asked him how it felt when he first heard the school was going to be renamed.
I was excited. I was very honored that they would name it, and most importantly is that they would commit to the work that we asked them to do as a family. We asked them to recognize not just academics, but the important value of relationships through music and through sports. And so that's what Dad's vision was. He always believed that students have to learn how to work together, and he thought nothing better than how they do it when they play a song or sing a song, or when they play something together, overcome adversity, not always win, but work together to try to achieve a goal. That's what this school hopefully is all about. That's what we hope it will be about, and that's why it's carrying Dad's name. I think Dad's legacy is love. It's love. It's about teaching young people, regardless of how different they look, different languages, different sexualities, genders, wherever they come from in the world, that all of them belong here and that all of them are a part of a community. That's really what Dad really wanted young people to know, because that's what his family taught him. That's what his grandmother taught him. That's what he learned from the land. That's what he learned from all the teachings of our people, so that we should love each other.
How do you feel being there tonight?
Happy, honored, and probably a little emotional. It's because I miss him so much. But I know how much he would have loved tonight. He would have really loved tonight. He would have loved that Sarah would have sang a song or played a song. He would have loved that young people were speaking, and most importantly, that all of us were giving respect and listening, caring for, privileging, honoring all of the incredible voices that have yet to come. And Dad always believed in young people. He always believed that if you listen to young people, you'll always laugh, or you'll learn, or you'll have a tear, but you'll grow. And he loved his children and his grandchildren and all of his family, but he really loved kids of all different walks of life. And he always had time for them. He always had in his car a little bubble machine. And regardless of how serious the event was, he would always pull out that bubble machine. It could be people crying about politics and racism and, pain and suffering in the country, but he would always go to the hotel lobby in the front of the community center. He would always go at the break whenever there was a break, and he'd pull out that bubble machine and try to give people joy because he himself wanted to feel that. So he always had a kid inside of him, and he always cared about listening to kids.
I love that story. That's Nigon Sinclair speaking last night at a ceremony acknowledging a Winnipeg school that is changing its name to École Mijana Gijek. That is the spirit name of his father, Maurice Sinclair. He was speaking there with Radio Canada's Morgan Knoll. Time right now is 9 minutes to 7 o'clock. And as I mentioned, the Prime Minister gets as many as 3 million emails and letters from Canadians every year. About 100,000 get a response. They're drafted not by Mark Carney himself, but by a team of about 40 people in the Prime Minister's office. But that could change. The PMO is looking at bringing in AI to answer the letters. Francis Sims covers tech for us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why are they thinking about doing this?
Well, Prime Minister Carney and the federal government is very focused, as they say, on improving productivity. And that sort of means two things in my mind. One is reducing costs, and they announced that the Privy Council or the Office of the Prime Minister is going to reduce their budget by about $64 million over the next 3 years. And the second part of the productivity is just improving responsiveness. Only about 3 to 5% of all the letters that come in are actually responded to. So there's millions of letters that are received by Canadians, and they get to about 100,000 of them. Those are those 39 correspondence officers. So they just recently received a letter saying that their work might change. We don't know if that means they're going to lose their job or be retrained. But the federal government thinks that it might be better for AI to respond, especially to things like people writing emails and asking about a grant. Where should I go to help find funding for my autistic child? Or I have a small business and I need a loan. AI could probably do that pretty well. And their thinking is that it's better to have AI in there responding to all the Canadians than not getting any response at all to many of them.
Is there value in AI, as you outlined? There's some value in them being able to answer things, but I shouldn't say is there value. I should be asking whether or not it's ironic. We don't even know what the AI's federal plan is from the feds yet, right?
Yeah. So I think one of the things is that CBC asked the government how they're actually going to implement this, and they said they didn't have an answer. But think about it this way: if we're using a system that comes out of the United States, and that system is using the values shared by President Trump, because they're a company from that place. And President Trump last year said he's going to ban woke AI. Well, tongue in cheek, I think, like, does that mean when you write a letter to the Prime Minister, that's actually President Trump responding instead of the Prime Minister? Like, we joke about that, but the bottom line is that there's bias built in. And that's why the government needs to take a hard look at that, I think, when they're implementing these tools. And in general, we've seen a number of things happen over the last few years, or the last 6 months, that really have changed our perspective on AI. When Minister Solomon announced the task force around AI, he was focused on making the regulation light, tight, and right. But then we had Trumbull Ridge happen. Then yesterday, the privacy commissioners from 3 provinces and the federal level announced that OpenAI broke privacy law. And then we hear lots of stories about jobs being affected by AI and people at risk losing their jobs. So I think the government has delayed the release of that strategy because they know that it's not just roses and sunshine, that there's potentially negative impacts as well that they need to address.
With the developments you're talking about, will all of this be affecting and impacting then the strategy, not just causing delay, but maybe that they're actually really, considering?
Yeah, I hope so, because, the details are the most important part here. We can't rush this out. I know Canada wants to be first, right, or at least a lead in this space. But, the benchmark is what's happening in the U.S. and in China. And then we know in the U.S. right now, the values of that administration don't necessarily align to the values of Canadians. And I think, what happens if somebody that's First Nations writes in and uses the spirit name of Murray Sinclair, right? You were talking about this before. Mm-hmm. In the letter. Is the AI tool going to know how to actually look at that, even know what that's all about, right? These are the fundamental questions that we need to answer. So I'm really hoping that when the government comes out with their strategy, they're going to focus on individual communities and how we already have leaders across the country. How can we pair them with AI to make them leaders, continue to be leaders in their community and have jobs, and then potentially lead the world? Because not only can we innovate from a big tech perspective here in Canada, but we can innovate from an ethical and responsible use of AI perspective. And that's something that's valuable for the whole world, because we know that in the United States, they're not leading in that part right now at all.
Appreciate your time on this, as always, Francis. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
That is a technology columnist, Francis Sims. He's Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology over at Humber Polytechnic. It is 5 minutes now to 7 o'clock. I still want to talk about kids here because after 7, we have an interesting interview coming up, and it is with a pair of grade 5 St. Boniface students. If something impacts you, shouldn't you have a say? That is what these two students feel. So they decided to start a petition to lower the voting age in school trustee elections. So far, they have 60 signatures. We're going to meet the 10 and 11-year-old girls, find out why they started this campaign. They will be with us in studio, in fact, right after 7 o'clock. Also, in the next hour of the show, we are going to be talking about Mother's Day coming up on Sunday and a special club. They call themselves the club that you don't want to be a part of, but if you're in it, you certainly aren't alone. We'll learn about the Parentless Club and their upcoming event for people who have lost their mums. So stay tuned. That's coming up at 7:40. And then a little bit later in the next hour of information radio here on CBC 89.3 FM, all week we've heard about how Manitoba schools are struggling to accommodate kids with complex needs. We have heard from teachers who say that some of them, one caller yesterday saying, I feel teachers are trained, but it's really difficult to keep up. We never blame the nurses. We look at the healthcare system. It's time not to blame teachers, as she put it and heard it, and to look at the overall system. So lots of stress there for teachers. We also have heard from parents, and we heard from specifically someone representing autistic parents and also who teaches autistic children, who said that in our province, yesterday she said this and it stopped me in my tracks, daily, there are parents pulling their kids who live with complex needs, in this case autism, out of school because the resources aren't there to meet the needs of their children. Daily. So coming up later on the show, we are going to hear more about educational assistants and their vital role in supporting kids with complex needs. But what they do isn't always well understood. We're going to hear from a union that represents EAs on the challenges they're facing in schools. And we do have the Premier on the show this morning after that. So we have a busy next hour as we continue to develop our understanding around what's going on. Let's dip into your weather and traffic before headlines here. So weather-wise, mostly cloudy, -1 in Winnipeg, downtown, -5 at the airport. We will get to a high of 11 today and a mix of sun and clouds, so it should start clearing for us this morning. Looks pretty nice out there already in downtown Winnipeg. Brandon's clear, -7 to start, and Thompson's mainly sunny at -9 at 3 minutes to 7. In traffic, we do have a couple of problems. So we have Sargent between Yonge and Furby that is closed, and Chief Peguis and Lagimodiere, the northbound left turn lane is blocked by a stalled vehicle. Let's go to headlines now for some more details. Here's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, the provincial government is going to appoint an administrator to oversee operations of Winnipeg Beach. The Interlake Towns Council lost quorum after a councillor resigned last week, leaving the already short-handed council with only 2 members instead of the full complement of 5. The Carney government in Ottawa is planning to propose changes to make it easier for natural resource projects to be approved and built faster. We're going to hear more on that story coming up on World Report in just a few minutes from now. And more Manitoba news coming for you at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
So stay with us right here on your Thursday morning show on Information Radio. And thanks for being with us. Remember, you can watch us as well on the YouTube stream of the morning show. I'm Marcy Marcoux. World Report's coming up next.
Either put gas in the car to take their kids to school or pay their hydro bills.
From sky-high gas prices to a shortage of jet fuel, war in the Middle East has created an historic oil crisis. We'll speak with the head of the International Energy Agency on a realigning of the global energy system and what he wants to see from Canada coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. The Dutch cruise ship at the center of a hantavirus outbreak is now heading to the Canary Islands. There are reports of more possible infections among passengers who disembarked earlier in the voyage, and among those who were never on the ship. So far, there are 8 confirmed or presumed cases, but there are concerns that may grow. We are expecting an update from the World Health Organization next hour. Let's bring in the CBC's Crystal Gamansing, who is following developments. Crystal, we're now hearing of a KLM flight attendant who has fallen ill. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that flight attendant is in hospital in Amsterdam with symptoms of hantavirus. The Dutch Health Ministry says the flight attendant was on the same plane as the 69-year-old woman who died in Johannesburg. Now, the airline, KLM, put out a statement saying that the 69-year-old was on one of their planes, but only briefly. She was not permitted to fly because of her state of health. Now, health authorities are now reaching out to everyone who was a passenger on that flight and asking them to monitor for any possible symptoms.
We're also hearing reports of 2 people in Singapore who were on that cruise who aren't well.
Yeah, so there's 2 individuals aged 67 and 65. They are currently in isolation with hantavirus tests pending. They will, however, regardless, be kept in quarantine for at least 30 days. Both of those people were on the ship at the start of the voyage from Argentina on April 1st. The Communicable Diseases Agency says they were also on the same flight as that 69-year-old woman from St. Helena to Johannesburg.
Thanks very much, Crystal.
You're welcome.
That is the CBC's Crystal Gamansing in London. 4 Canadians remain on board the cruise ship and are reportedly doing well. 2 other Canadians were among 30 passengers who disembarked in St. Helena last month. Efforts are underway to find them so their health can be monitored. Also, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand says consular officials will be at the port in the Canary Islands on Saturday to assist Canadians when they arrive. The federal government is moving to change the process for approving natural resource projects, including pipelines. CBC News has learned Ottawa is going to propose changes that would make it faster and easier to get the green light. As Kate McKenna reports, it would apply to all projects, not just the ones on the government's priority list.
The Carney government is set to release a proposal to speed up natural resource projects and federally assessed projects like ports. It's the next step in its promise to have 1 review per project and to make final decisions within 2 years, including any proposed pipelines. Sources say Indigenous consultation would remain a requirement and environmental assessments will not be watered down. They say consultations are expected to be launched this week. The full proposal was not shared with CBC News, and sources say things are subject to change. But because this could be a comprehensive process change, the government is planning to consult before tabling any legislation. The federal government did pass a law last year called C5, which allows lawmakers to overrule laws and regulations to fast-track projects deemed to be in the national interest. So far, they've named 15 projects, most of which were already underway. This new proposal is different in that it will affect all projects, not just the ones handpicked by government. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
As the world waits to see if U.S. President Donald Trump can broker a deal to end the war in Iran, Israel is launching strikes on Lebanon. This despite a month-old ceasefire. Tom Perry reports from Jerusalem.
For the first time in weeks, Israel has struck the southern suburbs of Beirut. It's the first attack on the Lebanese capital since the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel was reached last month. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced on social media he had ordered the strike along with his defense minister. The target, Netanyahu says, was a senior Hezbollah commander. The Israeli military says Ahmed Ali Balut, the leader of the militant group's Radwan Force Commando unit, was killed in the strike. Israel has been focusing its attacks on southern Lebanon. It's flattened several villages along the border and issued evacuation orders for several others as it targets Hezbollah fighters and infrastructure. The Lebanese health ministry says more than 120 people have died in Israeli strikes in the last week alone. On the Israeli side, the Israel Defense Forces says one of its soldiers was seriously injured by a Hezbollah drone strike, with 3 other soldiers suffering lesser injuries. As for the war in Iran and whether the U.S. can reach a deal to end it, the Israeli Prime Minister spoke yesterday and said he's been in near daily contact with U.S. President Donald Trump. Benjamin Netanyahu insisting he and Trump share common objectives, the most important of which is to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is meeting with Pope Leo at the Vatican. There has been growing tension between the pontiff and the U.S. president. Donald Trump has been highly critical of the Pope's comments on the war in Iran. Megan Williams has more from Rome.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived at the Vatican today with an awkward assignment, smoothing things over after his boss picked a fight with the Pope. Relations have gone sharply downhill over the U.S.-led war with Iran, which Leo has strongly condemned. Trump then called the Pope weak and terrible for foreign policy. He also accused Leo of endangering a lot of Catholics and falsely suggested the Pope thinks Iran should be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. The Pope pushed back, restating the Catholic Church's opposition to nuclear arms and saying its mission is to preach peace.
And I always believe that it's much better to enter into dialogue than to look for arms and to support the arms industry.
For the Vatican, the concern goes beyond Iran, says expert Massimo Fagioli.
We are very concerned about what's happening also in Israel, in Lebanon.
And about the rapidly shrinking Christian population there, he says. Vice President J.D. Vance, who, after lecturing the Pope on theology, is notably absent from this visit. Fagioli says the meeting is also about reassuring conservative Catholic voters ahead of the U.S. midterms.
They are afraid of losing a certain number of Catholic voters.
Friday, Rubio meets with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who criticized Trump's attacks on the Pope last month. Trump later said he had once considered her brave, but was wrong. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
Millions of pages of testimony, evidence, and emails, and only now are we seeing a purported suicide note from Jeffrey Epstein. It's part of the ongoing legal and political battles dogging U.S. President Donald Trump and his inner circle. World Report co-host John Northcott joins me now. John, the story behind this suicide note coming to light is complicated. Can you walk us through it?
Martina, Epstein's death in 2019 was ruled a suicide, but several weeks before that, he was found in his cell, unresponsive, with a cloth wrapped around his neck. Now, the man who is Epstein's cellmate claims that he found hidden in a book in the cell what could be a suicide note. A scrawled message says, in part, "They investigated me for a month, found nothing." It also says, "It is a treat to be able to choose the time to say goodbye." We're only now getting this potential piece of evidence because it was part of the legal case surrounding the cellmate, a man who is currently serving 4 life sentences for multiple murders. In the end, though, does this purported suicide note provide any more clarity around Epstein's death or about a life that still has so many questions surrounding it?
And John, questions continue to dog those who knew Epstein, including the current U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. What can you tell us about that?
Martina, Canadian listeners will be familiar with Lutnick because of his combative approach to Canada and tariffs and trade. But yesterday he was called before U.S. lawmakers behind closed doors to explain his relationship with Epstein and whether or not he disavowed him after his initial conviction. 2 very different interpretations emerged. Here's Democratic Representative James Wilkinshaw.
Epstein was so gross to him, so disgusting, that he wasn't willing to be in a room with them, but he was perfectly okay with his wife and family being in a room.
The Republicans described the testimony differently, with Representative James Comer defending Lutnick.
There's only so many questions you can ask Howard Lutnick, who had a property next door to Epstein in New York, but talked to him 3 times over a decade.
Martina, all these years later, clear answers in this case still so hard to find.
John, thanks for this.
Thanks, Martina.
That is John Northcott in our Toronto studio. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. Thanks so much for joining us on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Looks not bad out there. A little bit of clear sky finally. This hour on the program, we are going to be having a discussion about ongoing discussions this week. All week, we've been hearing about how Manitoba schools are struggling to accommodate kids with complex needs in the classroom. We've heard from teachers, parents, and experts. Coming up specifically, we're going to hear the perspective from an educational assistant, and we'll talk more about their role, which is vital in supporting kids in Manitoba. Also coming up, Mother's Day is this weekend. It's a time when a lot of people, of course, will be with mom, but what if you've experienced the loss of a mother?
I'm not the only one who's going through this experience. I'm the only one who's gone through mine, but there is a comfort in community.
We're going to hear more about a local parentless club coming up that supports people who've lost their moms. It is 7:11 right now. Let's go to what's happening in the news. Heather Wells is here with headlines live from our news center. Hi.
Hi there. Well, sand mining opponents are upset. A provincial bureaucrat took part in the same U.S. trade delegation as mining company CO Silica. A CO Silica executive and a Manitoba deputy minister went to Philadelphia in April for a World Trade Center business conference. We're going to hear from a woman who says she feels like the whole process is compromised to license CO Silica. CO Silica, the province is reviewing a license application for the RM of Springfield. So we'll hear more about that, what happened and what did not happen. The province is taking over the operations of a town in Manitoba's Interlake. The council in Winnipeg Beach lost quorum after a councillor resigned last week. It's left the already shorthanded council with just 2 members instead of 5. More on that coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks.
Let's go to what's happening with the forecast now. Abby, it is blue sky behind you, right?
Yeah, blue sky behind me.
I'm not just dreaming, seeing some kind of a figment. What do they say when people are on the desert and they kind of see the mirage or whatever it is?
Yeah, it's more like...
It's real.
It's real. It's no hallucination.
That's what I'm looking
it's not
for,
a mirage. It's real outside there. We're seeing this pleasant spring start across most of the regions, gradually clearing. We've been seeing that overcast for a few days now, but the province will definitely be enjoying this gradual clear, but still some cool conditions here and there. We're looking at most of the regions still below 0 this morning. In the city, we're tracking -1 at the Forks and still -5 at the airport. Mostly cloudy skies in some areas, but the sun already making its appearance and cracking through those blue skies. We'll notice the winds from the northwest. We warm up to a high of 11 today, a few degrees cooler than the seasonal for this time of the year. But for Winnipeg today, we're warming to 11, and most of the regions in the southern part of the province will definitely be touching that part of, the digit on the mercury, like 11 degrees, 12 degrees in most of the regions.
Beggars can't be choosers, man. All right, that's what's happening for our weather on this Thursday, May 7th. Let's find out what's going on in the morning commute. Now, after days of nothing going on, yesterday was very, very busy in the morning commute. So this morning, Sierra Sanders joins us next to let us know what's happening. And we do have a couple of spots out there that are challenging.
Yeah, we do, Marcy. Crews are still dealing with that fire there on Langside, and they've closed Sargent in both directions between Yonge and Furby. So crews are still dealing with that. It looks like they'll be there for some time. So something to keep in mind there on your commute. As well, we were mentioning a stalled vehicle in the northbound left turn lane at Chief Peguis and Lachemodiere. That has been cleared and moved out of the way. So you don't need to worry about that anymore. All lanes are open. You can give me a call on the CBC commuter line if there is something new that has popped up on your drive. The number is 204-788-3093.
It is 7:15, and a lot of parents have a lot to say about their child's education. But some kids think they should have a say, too. Last October, a grade 5 student in the Louis Riel School Division realized She couldn't vote in trustee elections. So in November, she started a petition with her friend to lower the voting age. 10-year-old Libby is here now. Good morning, Libby.
Good morning.
And 11-year-old Helen is here. Hi, Helen.
Hello.
So I know that the two of you have been working on this. Now, Libby's mom, Anna Weir, is also here for a little support. Hi there.
Hello.
If I have a good interview, I won't even have to talk to you. That's always what I say.
Amazing.
Girls, Libby, how did this all start? Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I was at home, and I think my parents reminded each other that, like, this year was the year that they were going to vote for school trustees, because it's not every year, and I remembered that kids weren't allowed to vote, even if they were in the division and they were in the schools getting affected by the decisions made by school trustees.
So what were you thinking? Like, your parents get to do this, and did you say to them first, hang on a minute, how come I don't have a say?
Yeah, it just felt sort of frustrating because, I mean, there are problems with schools, and I didn't get to have a say in how to fix them. And so I told my parents, hey, why isn't this inclusive to also kids? And they said, we don't know.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, well, if they can't change it, maybe I could try.
That's amazing. Now, did you go to school and start talking to your friend Helen? Or Helen, how did you first hear about this? Did Libby tell you about it?
Yeah, but I started hanging out with different people because my other friend had new friends, so I just kind of walked up to Libby and Ace, and
And what did you think when she told you that only adults can vote in school trustee elections?
Well, at first I was kind of like, okay,
Mhm.
but then I was like, but you do have a point, Libby. Why can't we vote? This is like, we're affected by the decisions.
Mhm.
And yet we're sitting here and like, we're not allowed to decide who makes these decisions.
So who came up with the idea to have a petition? Was it you guys together? Tell me more about that, Helen.
I think it was just Libby, really.
Was you on your own, Libby? Okay. So you have this petition going. What were your first steps in thinking about how to do something about this?
Well, my mom
Mhm.
is an activist, so she tells me about, like, the unfairnesses of the world. So I thought, what is one way that you can change something? What is one way that you can get people to change something? And then I thought, well, if a bunch of people do it and a bunch of people do something, then it's more likely that something will change, and a petition is a good way to get that.
Yeah. Let's roll Mom in here for a second. So what did it feel like to watch your daughter, asking questions about this, and then also, you giving her the tools to understand what it means to fight for something?
Yeah, I mean, it felt good. Like, I was impressed that Libby was paying attention to the elections and was thinking about how she could become engaged, and then realizing she can't really until she's voting age, and then decide to do something about it. I thought it was great.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit then, you guys can both answer this. Maybe I'll start with Libby, though. What are some of the issues that are important to you and your classmates in school?
Some of the issues that are important to me and my classmates, there's only one gender-neutral bathroom in our whole school, and there are kids in our school who don't fit into girl or boy, and that is a big problem for them.
Why do you think there should be more? Is it a big school, or where do they have to go to get to the bathrooms? Yeah, you can go ahead, Helen. How about it?
Most of the kids' classrooms are on the second floor, apart from 278 classrooms that are on the first floor.
Got it.
So,
do you feel the same way as Libby, that it's kind of something that's not fair? You'd like to see another bathroom?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you guys were presenting this to your classmates, the idea of a petition, What did it feel like?
It felt sort of scary, but many of them were very supportive, and that motivated us to keep going.
Mm-hmm. And so 160 signatures, what does that feel like, Helen? That's a lot of people.
It feels like we're getting somewhere, and we also presented in front of the school board, so it kind of feels like we're moving forward.
Okay, so that's what was that like then, presenting in front of the school board?
It was a bit scary, but because we were trying to do something to change the world for the better. So, city or province, but still, we were trying to change something. So it felt scary, but it also felt good that we were trying to change something for the better.
Did you feel like you were heard, Libby, when you were talking to them and making your presentation?
I did, and I felt like I was even more heard when I first asked Helen, because she was my friend and she agreed with me, and yeah.
I think that really speaks to something, right? Because I think what keeps us fighting for those justices, because that's what you two are doing, is sometimes when you're doing it on your own, but you get that one friend in there, and then they kind of give you the strength to keep on going, to keep on fighting, because it can be hard, because sometimes there's not change. Have you guys heard back from the school division yet?
I think they're going to try and set up maybe a meeting with the educational minister.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, we are very looking forward to that.
What do you want people to think about when they're listening to you this morning about why kids should be able to, maybe have a bigger say in school trustees and issues around the schools?
For me personally, I want people to think, this is important. How can I help them?
Yeah, and to know that they can. They'll be inspired by you.
Yeah.
What are you hoping that changes because of this, Helen?
That kids over 7 years of age are able to vote in school trustee elections, because by that time they have basic literacy skills, and literacy is a big help in voting.
You guys are amazing. I have to say, I want to just tell the listeners something. Before we got on the air, these two had a booklet, and they were looking at sort of things. Let's make sure we hit the main points we want to cover and such. You were the most prepared guests I've had, I think, all week. And you did fantastic, and I love it. And yet they didn't bring their book out to look at their notes once, because you just know your stuff. I love it. How much did you prepare for your presentation, Libby, when you guys are going in front of the school board?
We prepared a lot.
Yeah.
We spent about, I think, 15, maybe 17 recesses inside working on a digital presentation, and then working with our teachers, having the principal and a member of the school board grammar correct it, and
yeah,
I bet you did. Good luck with all of this. We'll have to find out what happens if you meet with the education minister. Thank you so much for being here and telling us about it. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming down.
No problem.
That's 10-year-old Libby, 11-year-old Helen. They've started a petition to give kids the right to vote in school trustee elections. Anna Weir has also been in studio with us. She is Libby's mom.
The puck may have dropped on the playoffs, but the news doesn't stop for hockey. I'm Brittany Greenslade, host of CBC Winnipeg News at 6. To get your local news, stream CBC Winnipeg News at 6, 24/7 on CBC Gem, the CBC News app, and selected streaming platforms. CBC Winnipeg News at 6, your local news on your favorite streaming device.
The PWHL is back for the third season of heart-stopping women's hockey. And this season, there are two new teams looking to make their mark on the ice. The Seattle Torrent and Vancouver Golden Eyes. When the world's best women's hockey players face off, anything can happen. Will the Minnesota Frost achieve a three-peat? Will a new team take home the trophy? There's only one way to find out. Watch the PWHL for free on CBC Gem.
Time right now is 7:24 a.m. And speaking of the PWHL, let's talk about morning sports overall. Joining us now with the rundown on CBC, as he does every morning, Scott Reguera is here. Hello.
Hey, Marcy.
So it wasn't the start for the second round of the playoffs the Montreal Canadiens were looking for.
No, a loss to the Sabres in Buffalo, Marcy, where the Habs were playing catch-up basically from the start of things. Less than 5 minutes in, their star defenseman Lane Hudson blew a gasket, ended up on his rump, and the puck went down the other side of the ice for a Sabres goal. Halfway through, Buffalo led by 3, and if you consider what happened in the first round against Tampa, where Montreal never trailed by more than 1 goal, this is an entirely different cup of tea. Here is Coach Martin Saint-Louis.
Totally different kind of feel of a game than, against Tampa. I felt our top guys got more touches in space and stuff. I like that we battled. It wasn't the start that we wanted in the game, in the series, but we're going to keep going.
Yeah, interesting to hear Martin Saint-Louis say Montreal's top players had more room last night. Nick Suzuki, he scored on a power play, but that top line with Jari Slafkovsky and Cole Caulfield was pretty ineffective as a whole, I thought, at least. Then there's their goalie, Jakub Dobish, who was a hero against Tampa Bay and was merely good last night. And good probably won't be good enough against these Sabres by the looks of things. As for the positives, after managing a meager 9 shots in their final game in the first round, Montreal had 28 of them on target last night. And then there's the fact the Prime Minister believes in them. With the ongoing U.S.-Canada trade dispute, Mark Carney was asked, just how important is it that the Habs push for a Stanley Cup?
And how important is the Habs run? I mean, there's not much more important. And I look forward to calling the President of the United States and sending him his Habs jersey.
Trying to picture Donald Trump in the bleu, blanc et rouge. The color scheme fits, actually. The Habs will, that's a strong visual. Habs play game 2 in Buffalo tomorrow.
Sorry, I had something else in my head about the tanned color of his skin. But you were, I know where you went there.
You go your way, I'll go mine.
Let's go to the PWHL before we get into trouble here. What's up?
Well, big news from the PWHL. Yesterday, as was widely expected, the league announced its 9th franchise would be in Detroit. With more girls registered for hockey in Michigan than in any other state, the city's a natural fit. And then there's the fact Detroit showed through averaging 14,000 fans a game over their 4 takeover tour dates that the city is willing to sport the women's pro game. This will give the PWHL one more American team than Canadian, and League Vice President Amy Shear was asked about that.
For us to be successful, we have to be across all of North America. And that is the U.S. and Canada. And so there's not one country is more important than the other. And I always talk about the fact that I don't like to divide the league into U.S. and Canada. Every market is important on its own merit and its own right. And that's how we review the markets, not necessarily by country.
The league wants to add up to 3 more teams for next season, Marcy, and Winnipeg's very much in this discussion. We'll see. Minnesota is obviously a part of things, not too far afield, and Minnesota gets set to play tonight against Montreal, as we heard a little earlier. The Victoire looking to go up 2-1 against the defending champs.
And the Bombers, rookie camp's underway.
Yep. Quarterback Taylor Elgersma drew much of the attention on day 1. Elgersma, who's from London, Ontario, and who won the Heck Creighton Award as the best in youth sports a couple of years ago, hopes he can win Winnipeg's backup role behind Zach Collaros. As part of the CFL's quarterbacking internship program, Elgersma has been to training camps before with the Argos and with the Ticats, not to mention attending training camp with the Green Bay Packers. But yesterday was Elgersma's first camp by a team that drafted him.
This is super exciting. Be able to be here for the first time, look around this place. I mean, it's beautiful. So what more can you ask for? I think we've all had kind of our own unique past, and it's about how can we all learn from each other and pull in the same direction, because we're all here to help the Winnipeg Blue Bombers win a Grey Cup. And so that's, I think, what we're all focused on.
Got to pull for a Canadian quarterback, especially one who's 6'5", 230 pounds, and showed off that great arm of his, hitting Dorian Singer for a deep touchdown pass yesterday on day 1. Taylor Elgersma will see. There are other quarterbacks in the fold, including Terry Wilson, who has previous CFL experience. But it's just day 1. And by the way, full camp for the Bombers starts on Sunday.
I don't think we've ever had a quarterback that big. Just thinking about, all of our quarterbacks.
Strevler wasn't small.
Man. No, not tall, though.
Yeah, that's true. Broader than vertical.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Scott's here tomorrow again with Morning Sports. Scott Reguer on CBC. A couple of traffic issues that we'll just mention here as we head into the news. So we do still have emergency crews who have closed Sargent between Yonge and Furby. So that's the issue that we want to mention. 788-3093 with any updates. And still ahead on the program, Mother's Day is on Sunday, and they call themselves a club you don't want to be part of. But if you're in it, you won't be alone. We're going to hear about a local parentless club for people who've lost their mums. Right now, it's time for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. Just look at that sky. Nice blue sky out there. It's going to be sunny today. Right now we're at -1, but we do warm up into the double digits. Just barely, though. A high today of 11. Warmer tomorrow. People opposed to sand extraction in Springfield are concerned a senior Manitoba official took part in a U.S. trade delegation with sand mining company CO Silica. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
The optics are really bad.
Taji Bell chairs Our Line in the Sand, a group opposed to mining company CO Silica's plans to drill for sand in the arm of Springfield. Manitoba is reviewing a second license application by the company. Bell's concerned a CU executive and a deputy minister in the NDP government took part in the same delegation to a business conference in Philadelphia. Bell says the licensing process is now compromised. Dawson Trail MLA Bob Lagasse, an independent who represents the mining site, also called the co-participation of the province and CO Silica unacceptable.
If they're going on a trip with them, are they then lobbying the government to do this project?
The NDP government says there were no meetings with CO Silica in Philadelphia. The trip was organized by the World Trade Center in Winnipeg. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Fire crews continue to work on a house fire in the West End this morning. That fire started just before 5 in the 500 block of Langside. Still no word if anyone was in the house at the time. Police have closed Sargent in both directions between Yonge and Furby. The province is taking over the operations of a town in Manitoba's Interlake. The council in Winnipeg Beach lost quorum after a councillor resigned last week. That left the already shorthanded council with 2 members instead of 5. Pam Jackson was mayor of Winnipeg Beach until 2024. She says some people in the resort town feel council's been making decisions behind closed doors, but she's confident town staff will help keep things on track in the coming weeks.
I trust that whatever administrator the province brings in, working along with the staff that are at Winnipeg Beach. I mean, council's not there, but the staff certainly are. I absolutely trust that they will be doing everything in their power to make the tourist season as good as it always is.
The province says the administrator will remain in place until a new council sworn in after the town's regularly scheduled election, and that is July 24th. Dutch officials say a woman showing signs of Hanta virus is in an Amsterdam hospital, but she was not aboard that quarantined cruise ship. Dutch media reports she is a KLM flight attendant who had contact with a woman who died from the virus in South Africa. So far, there are 8 presumed or confirmed cases of hantavirus related to this outbreak. Now, 4 Canadians remain on that cruise ship and are reportedly well. 2 other Canadians were among the 30 passengers who disembarked in St. Helena last month. Efforts are underway to find them so their health can be monitored. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand says consular officials will be at the port in the Canary Islands on Saturday to assist Canadians when they arrive. The federal government is going to move to fast-track all natural resource projects. 2 federal sources tell CBC the Carney government is going to shift the rules even for proposals that aren't on the list of major projects of national interest. Those projects were announced last year as special priorities. The new regulations will still include a mandatory consultation with Indigenous people. The sources say an official announcement will happen later this week. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A Manitoba team has won gold at the Youth Bowl Canada National Championships in Winnipeg. Senior boys doubles partners Logan Newton and Tanner Barber clinching the national title yesterday, one day after Newton rolled a perfect 450-point game. It was the only second perfect game ever recorded in the event's 62-year history. Newton says winning with his longtime teammate made the moment even more meaningful.
I feel awesome, It's even better when you're bowling with doubles and a partner. To do it with your partner, it's even better for lifetime best friend.
The Youth Bowl Canada Championships brought teams from across the country to Winnipeg over 3 days of competition. Punjabi superstar Diljit Dosanjh is performing in Winnipeg tonight. Jobanpreet and Trimanpreet Singh Rakra have been superfans of the musician their whole lives. When Dosanjh performed at Canada Life Centre in 2024, Trimanpreet says the two were invited on stage to dance with him.
It was pretty fun. We were excited, and that's what we were hoping for. And at the end of the show, he gave us his vest.
Dosanjh turned heads as the first turban-wearing Indian artist to walk the Met Gala in New York. That was in 2025. These two superfans plan to wear a replica of that outfit for tonight's concert. You can find photos of that outfit and other Manitoba news. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Sometimes when I hear these, stats, it's like so surprising to me. Like that he was the first person wearing a turban to walk the Met Gala carpet. And that was just in 2025, you said?
That's last year, yeah.
Right? It's just, wow. But it's just a reminder why, we have to talk about equality.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should be a good show tonight if you have tickets. And also, you should be heading out in weather that's not going to be too bad. Here's our regional forecast with Abby Eddy.
Yeah, beautiful spring day across the southern regions already. We're starting to see the sunshine spread across all the regions in the south, from the Pembina Valley region, the Westman, all the way towards the Interlake region, and even the central part of the province. We're seeing lots of sunshine in that part of the province. Mild highs still not getting to our season. Maybe from tomorrow we start touching that plus 16 in most of the regions in the southern parts of the province. Forecast for the city of Winnipeg and nearby areas, we started mostly cloudy. Now there's some sunshine in the downtown. It's going to become more sunny as we get into the morning. Current temperatures, we're seeing -1 at the Forks, -6 at the airport. Highs would get to 11 degrees today. And then more clear conditions will come tonight. Tomorrow, we struggle to get to plus 15, which is almost close to the seasonal of the 16 degrees we are supposed to be at this time of the year. For the Pembina Valley region, from Morden towards Port Perry, we're looking at -4, warming up to 12 degrees. Brandon towards Nippo and nearby, -7 at this time. Sunny, you're getting to 13 degrees later. Sunshine also in the Dauphin area, all the way towards the Roblin area. We're looking at -5, warming up to 12 degrees. While in the Interlake region, Gimli and nearby towards Hecla, we're saying sunshine there. -3 at this time, highs of 10 degrees. Then we cross into the central and the northern part of the province, the Power Flim Flom. Both regions are sunny, -5, warming up to 9 degrees around Norway House. We're also seeing -5 there. You head to 7 degrees under some mild winds. Towards Thompson and Lynn Lake, we're looking at sunny conditions. Temperatures hovering between -8 and -10. Highs would be around 5 degrees. And then for the Gillam area, cloudy conditions at this time. -4, there's periods of snow beginning sometime this afternoon. Highs would only be around -1. To the lake, you're -10 at this time with some flurries. Late this morning into the afternoon period, you get to -3 later, while for Churchill, we're still seeing those light snow drifting around there. We're looking at temperatures around -7, and highs would be at -2 with some gusty winds that will be felt. But Winnipeg right now, -1 at the Fox.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
It is time now for your commute update. Sierra Sanders back in with details.
Hi, Marcy. Yeah, the story throughout the morning has been that fire on Langside that has emergency crews closing Sargent between Yonge and Furby. As far as we know, that is still closed, and emergency crews are still dealing with that fire there on Langside. So you will still see that closure. It did sound like they will be there for a little while this morning. So that is really the big situation of the morning and thing to keep an eye out for, especially if that that is on your commute today. But if there is something new that has popped up, if there's a new situation, you can give me a call on that CBC commuter line. The number's 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Sierra. Well, Mother's Day is on Sunday, but for people who have lost their mom, it can be a very difficult day. There's an event that looks to bring back some light and laughter for those folks. Winnipeg is the newest city to host Motherless Day. It's an annual event put on by the Parentless Club. That's a non-profit that's been hosting these events all across Canada. Now, they call it a pity party you actually want to go to. That's their language. Amanda Cates is the co-founder of the Parentless Club. She lost her own mom in 2017 when she was just 21 years old. And actually, her mom's side of the family hails from Winnipeg. She joins us this morning. Hi there.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Kat's over here, but Stern's over there, so very Winnipeg proud.
Thank you. Yeah, we say you're an honorary Winnipegger. Once family from here, always from here. How did the idea of this, the gathering of other people that also had lost moms, how did it help you in your own journey? Losing your mom at 21 must have been quite something.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenging year. And as people know, loss, it's very profound at the time that it's happening and it sticks with you forever. But one of the things that I always found really bittersweet was connecting with other people who had that shared experience of losing a parent. And it's an experience and a connection that we would never wish upon anybody. We call the Parentless Club the club that nobody wants to be a part of. But I had one friend who had experienced the loss of her own mom a couple years prior, and we had no idea how to show up for her at that time. And 2 years later, when I was experiencing my mom's loss, she was so much better at being there for me. And as difficult as that connective point was, we were always really grateful to have each other, and that kind of inspired this event and this community that we're creating with the Parentless Club.
So it came to be sort of did it come to be out of the two of you and now it's spread across the country?
So that individual, she isn't the one that is creating things with me now, but she was kind of an inspiration and a bit of a driving force as we created what we're creating. But how Motherless Day came to be was for anybody who's experienced the loss of a parent, they know that the tough times and the tough moments, they can come at any moment. It can be the anniversary of their passing. It can be their birthday. It can be your own. It can be the holidays. And it can be a Tuesday afternoon when you're walking through the grocery store and you come upon that ice cream that you remember that they used to love and you haven't seen in a while. But for anybody who's experienced the loss of a parent, they know that all of those days are different, but one that always hits hard is Mother's Day. When you have a mom, it's easy to picture what that day looks like. It's booking a brunch reservation, it's buying her flowers, it's writing a beautiful card. But when you don't have a mom, those days, those big Hallmark holidays, are instead a reminder of who and what's missing. So knowing that different people had experienced these same sentiments and often end up hiding from those days rather than leaning into them, I figured, why sit here and wait for something to be created on this day? And instead, let's rewrite the script, let's reframe things, and ultimately let's just create a space to go on a day where we didn't have one. And that was in 2024 here in Toronto. Last year, we spread to Vancouver with a friend of mine who I knew from childhood, who saw what we were creating with Motherless Day. And she had lost her mom when she was 19, wanted to get involved. And then this year, we're bringing on Winnipeg as well. And we're really proud to be spreading this community, and coming back home to Winnipeg for me is pretty special too.
The event is actually sold out here in Winnipeg. What do you hear from people who go to these events about what they leave with?
They leave with so much. It's still wild to us that these events sell out. I mean, loss is something that touches everyone at some point. And unfortunately, this club that no one wants to be a part of is one that keeps on growing. But the sentiment that we get from attendees is unbelievable and so joyous and really profound. When you lose that parent, this day sucks for you. And now we get people coming every year. We get people telling us that they can't wait for Mother's Day, which is something that they never thought that they would feel. And they're creating this beautiful experience within this room, surrounded by people who, of course, don't understand exactly what your experience is like, because nobody can understand that. But you're surrounded by people who get it, who you don't need to feel judged by retelling the same story or laughing sometimes or crying through that laughter or vice versa. But they're also walking away with new friends and new people in their corner. And that is something that's really beautiful too.
Community, right? Because the event is the event, but then there's the Parentless Club. And there's a moment that happened, I understand, last year at the event between people who lost their mom recently. Can you recall sort of what you saw there?
Yeah, I'm always surprised by, and I shouldn't be anymore because I've witnessed it happen so many times, but the way that people's walls just are immediately shed at our events, and the way that they open up to people and feel comfortable around these people that they had never met before, but they're collaging and they're pulling pieces of these collages that remind them of their moms, and they know that there's this commonality that surrounds them, and that's the reason that got them into this space. But I walk around the room, I play host a little bit, and I just want to make sure that everybody's okay and has what they need. And as I move between groups, you see people crying to each other and opening up about these challenging moments, surprised that they're in this space when mom just passed away a couple months ago, and another group was just talking about how difficult it was for dad to start dating again, and how they're so happy that, he's finding companionship, and that they never want him to feel lonely in his loss, and the responsibility that they've always felt to make sure that he's okay and wanting that new partnership, but how tough it is to see a new person in the room or see him light up talking about someone. And those things you don't connect with every friend that you have, right? It's these little micro moments to some, but these really large moments to this club and this room that we're in.
Yeah, and it's a remaking of a unit if you have had that unit, that is. Not everyone does, but it can be a remaking of a unit if there has been a mom and dad and there is a dad left behind or a partner left behind, then that's a whole other conversation to relate with people. So just before you go, what are you going to be doing in Winnipeg at the Motherless Day event on Sunday?
Yeah, we have a full few hours of some meaningful activities that are all inspired by mom and commemorative and honoring to her. So we're going to be collaging and pulling pieces of magazines that are inspired by her. That we're also going to be making charm bracelets, and you can pull charms also that hold meaning to you. We're going to be building bouquets that we can, have something beautiful that comes out of this day that we can take home from us, with us, and breathe new life. And we also have, I have some here, these plantable seed cards by The Good Card that everybody gets. And what's really beautiful about these is I always find a catharsis in writing something down to myself or my mom on her birthday or on these tough days. But these cards you can also plant into the ground and create new life from our loss. So everything that we're doing is with the intention of not just focusing on what we're without, but what we're with, and creating something new and beautiful from an experience that didn't feel pretty beautiful for quite some time.
Love this. I think a lot of people will. Thank you for bringing it to our city, Amanda, in honor of your own mom. So thank you very much, and I hope that the experience on Sunday is wonderful in Winnipeg.
We hope so too. Grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Live on CBC via Zoom, Amanda Cates, as she said, Stearns, just in case you're in Winnipeg, because she does have ties to Winnipeg as well. We reached her in Toronto, but her late mother's family is from here. She will be here for the event in Winnipeg. It's the first time in our city for this. She's co-founder of the Parentless Club. Their sold-out event is Motherless Day, so it's happening at Parcel Pizza. People will be gathering at that location on Stradbrook. It is 11 minutes now to 7 o'clock. Look at that sunshine out there. You can see it behind me even if you're watching the show on YouTube. Just streaming in through the windows here downtown. It's so nice. It's just been so cloudy and cold and snowing. And today we're going to get to a high of 11 degrees with that sun. Just a reminder, Sargent Avenue remains closed between Yonge and Furby. So that is still an issue on your morning drive. 788-3093 if you do need to update anything on the commute. Well, Manitoba schools are struggling to accommodate a growing number of kids who need extra support. It's the conclusion of a survey this week from the Manitoba Teachers Society we've been reporting on. So it was sent to 17,000 members. Over 3,300 responded. Almost half of the respondents said they have 6 or more kids in their classes with complex needs. Over 3/4 said students aren't getting the support they need. The Manitoba Teachers Society says educational assistants are a vital part of the solution, but their role isn't always well understood. We have heard from parents, we've heard from teachers, we've heard from all kinds of folks. We have the Premier who's going to be sitting here after 8 o'clock to respond. But first, my next guest is Leanne Gregorchuk. She worked as a classroom educational assistant for 25 years. Since 2022, she's working to represent support staff in the Louis Riel School Division as the president of CUPE Local 3473, and she's in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's interesting because, when we hear from EAs, yesterday in our interview, we heard, some EAs are graduating, but they're not finding the work. We've heard some EAs are burning out and leaving the work. For people that don't know what an educational assistant does, what is their role in the classroom?
Well, their educated role is to help and assist students in the classroom.
All students with complex needs.
All students.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about how that job has changed and what you hear from members and EAs, about what is in the way of them doing their best work in this climate in Manitoba.
Well, years past, you supported the whole classroom, and you had a few that were one-on-one. It has changed that there's quite a large number of students that need assistance, also trying to maintain them in the classroom as well, taking them out of the classroom because they're not able to sit in the classroom and function with their peers. So they could provide, overall, the teacher can provide a educated or learning experience for the other children. But with the needs increasing, the amount of time that is needed per child or student is alarming and cannot be done one-to-one or in a group setting. So more EAs are required to support that teacher to educate.
Yesterday, we heard some numbers. This was specific to, students who might live with autism. Mm-hmm. That, years ago, it might have been 1 in 150 kids that were diagnosed or in the school environment. And now the number was 1 in 32 kids. You're nodding right away. Mm-hmm. So it's just that much more many kids. What kind of needs overall would an EA work with when you look at complex needs?
Just as that, it, depends on the severity of their needs. But
would it be autism or dyslexia?
Autism,
it's everything,
it's
right?
Everything. Everything. Unfortunately, you nailed it right on the head, that the increase of children who have autism has increased immensely. That, it could go anywhere. Life skills, even sitting in a classroom. And then the complex needs of tube feeding, all the extra toileting, that as well being brought into the classroom as well for inclusion purposes, which is, fantastic. They have a right to be educated with and sit in a classroom with their peers. But that limits your time in the classroom.
I have to read you this quote because Dimitra Hadjidiakos was on yesterday. She's the president of Autism Manitoba, former teacher, executive director of Autism Learning Center. I asked her about inclusion because that's, it's a right and it's the goal and it's the law in Manitoba. Her quote was, "Inclusion is not inclusion without support." Mm-hmm. She was talking about the fact that it's the ideal is there. But what do you say to that in terms of the number of EAs? Because teachers are telling us Manitoba just simply doesn't have enough. They need more than twice the number of EAs in their classrooms to keep up with growing needs. Mm-hmm. What's behind the challenge to staff those positions in your view?
maintaining those individuals that have, that applied and want to help, like in the classroom, to be an educational assistant. The extreme needs that is present, the job demand has increased. You're one person and you're trying to service 5 other students that are needing your help.
So maintaining meaning, I don't know if you can quantify how many people are leaving or why they leave then.
Well, the job security is there. However, wage is a big aspect. And the social demands as well, or in the environment as well. It's very high needs, meaning a lot of unsafe challenges as well. It could be from the violence includes physical, but also verbal, near misses. It's a mental, grueling job. Really.
What does a near miss mean?
Near miss is if you're avoiding to be hit or just as that, a verbal aggression.
How often might educational assistants be dealing with that? Is this common?
Daily.
Mm-hmm. Was it like that when you were in the classroom years ago? Is that a change as well? Or is that
that has increased as well. But I think the needs have increased. Therefore, the certain challenges have increased as well.
I hate to keep going back to yesterday, but we had a really long interview with Dimitra, and what was interesting about it relates to this. She was saying that she feels like there's not enough support for kids from the early ages even that have the complex needs in our system. Like we just don't have enough people. Just sort of by the time they get into the schools, they may not be equipped to maybe not have the outburst, or if it's something, if it does happen to be a violent outburst or such, like it sort of carries through. And then sometimes schools have to sort of send the kids parents keep their kids home because they kind of get called.
Right.
So would more people solve this? Is it all about the numbers of people in classrooms, or what would you say needs to be fundamentally changed in the system?
Increased also, and then programs. There was more programs available to school age children as well, and then carrying that through into school age as well. That has decreased, but because of cuts to whether it be childcare, whether it was programs within the education system, that pre-planning has also decreased.
What should we ask the Premier about this after 8 o'clock? What would you like to say? Do this. If you do this, it'll improve things.
Well, one thing, you increase EAs, you increase teachers, you increase funding to schools to support. Basically, there is some children that are not funded either that are coming into schools as well. And increasing EAs, yes, but also, for example, even the wage parity in Winnipeg itself, wages are much higher than in rural communities. Rural communities are suffering that way as well.
What would lead a kid to not be funded? I'm short on time, but I'm just curious because you brought it
up. If they're not diagnosed
Thank you very much, Leon. You've taught us a lot about this, and it's all about getting a greater understanding so we can improve the system. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Premier WAB Canoe here after 8 o'clock. Leanne Gregorchuk's been an educational assistant since 97. She represents support staff in L'Oreal School District as president of CUPE Local 3473, school division rather. Heather Wells now with a headline.
Good morning. Well, opponents of a sand mining proposal for the RM of Springfield say the CO Silica licensing process has been compromised by a trip involving the company and the province. It happened in April. A provincial bureaucrat took part in the same U.S. trade delegation to Philadelphia as the mining company. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you, Heather. Well, as I mentioned, Premier WAB Canoe here for our monthly interview after 8 o'clock. It's 1 minute to 8 right now. It's -1 in Winnipeg. Today's high is 11, and Sargent Avenue remains closed between Yonge and Furby. Stay with us here on Information Radio on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app, and YouTube. Nice sunny sky out there. Enjoy it.
On cue. I'm Jill Deacon, sitting in for Tom Power. Our Cals are about as big as a Canadian rock band can get. I mean, they sell out arenas. But Max and Mike from the Arkells will tell you why their new tour includes the kind of small venue they started out in. Places like the Legion in Calgary and a little club in Vancouver.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
From sky-high gas prices to a shortage of jet fuel, war in the Middle East has created an historic oil crisis. We'll speak with the head of the International Energy Agency on a realigning of the global energy system and what he wants to see from Canada coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. The Dutch cruise ship at the center of a Hanta virus outbreak is now heading to the Canary Islands. There are reports of more possible infections among passengers who disembarked earlier in the voyage, and among those who were never on the ship. So far, there are 8 confirmed or presumed cases, but there are concerns that may grow. The CBC's Crystal Gamansing is following developments this morning. Crystal, we're now hearing of a KLM flight attendant who has fallen ill. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that flight attendant is in hospital in Amsterdam with symptoms of hantavirus. The Dutch Health Ministry says the flight attendant was on the same plane as the 69-year-old woman who died in Johannesburg. Now, the airline, KLM, put out a statement saying that the 69-year-old was on one of their planes, but only briefly. She was not permitted to fly because of her state of health. Now, health authorities are now reaching out to everyone who was a passenger on that flight and asking them to monitor for any possible symptoms.
We're also hearing reports of 2 people in Singapore who were on that cruise who aren't well.
Yeah, so there's 2 individuals aged 67 and 65. They are currently in isolation with hantavirus tests pending. They will, however, regardless, be kept in quarantine for at least 30 days. Both of those people were on the ship at the start of the voyage from Argentina on April 1st. The Communicable Diseases Agency says they were also on the same flight as that 69-year-old woman from St. Helena to Johannesburg.
Thanks very much, Crystal.
You're welcome.
That is the CBC's Crystal Gamansing in London. Prime Minister Mark Carney is defending plans to change the process for approving natural resource projects, including pipelines. Ottawa wants to make it faster and easier to get the green light.
The important thing is that we respect the law, and the designation requires consultations in advance of designation. We're moving forward at speed, but we're doing it in the right way.
Carney says his government is consulting First Nations, provinces and territories and other stakeholders. As Kate McKenna reports, the change would apply to all projects, not just the ones on the government's priority list.
The Carney government is set to release a proposal to speed up natural resource projects and federally assessed projects like ports. It's the next step in its promise to have one review per project and to make final decisions within 2 years, including any proposed pipelines. Sources say Indigenous consultation would remain a requirement and environmental assessments will not be watered down. They say consultations are expected to be launched this week. The full proposal was not shared with CBC News, and sources say things are subject to change. But because this could be a comprehensive process change, the government is planning to consult before tabling any legislation. The federal government did pass a law last year called C5, which allows lawmakers to overrule laws and regulations to fast-track projects deemed to be in the national interest. So far, they've named 15 projects, most of which were already underway. This new proposal is different in that it will affect all projects, not just the ones handpicked by government. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Mexico is launching a trade mission to Canada. It involves hundreds of businesses and meetings over the next couple of days. Mexico and Canada are looking to strengthen bilateral ties ahead of this summer's CUSMA review. The CBC's Jorge Barrera is in Mexico City, speaking to some of the executives involved.
we want to open the doors with different Canadian companies that are interested.
Luis Arzani is Chief Commercial Officer for Group Express International, a logistics company, one of 240 Mexican businesses in Canada, for a 2-day trade mission starting today with stops in Toronto and Montreal.
That's the potential of this mission, that we can try to find a way to integrate directly Canada and Mexico.
The visit follows a Team Canada mission to Mexico in February. This round will see Mexico's Secretary of Economy, Marcelo Ebrard, meeting with Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc for Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement talks.
I think they can confirm that this North American trade agreement should prevail as
Armando Ortega was a Mexican negotiator during North America Free Trade Agreement negotiations in the 1990s. He says bilateral trade has yet to reach its full potential.
The fact that Mexican capital starts to invest in Canada, in my view, will be a game changer.
Fernando Vargas, CEO of digital services firm Bloom White Label Partners, says stronger ties between the two countries can create stability in turbulent economic times.
Both countries are very interested in working with each other.
Mexico's Secretariat of Economy says there are about 1,800 meetings planned over the 2-day visit. Jorge Barrera, CBC News, Mexico City.
Israel is defending its decision to strike Beirut's southern suburbs. Yesterday was the first time the Lebanese capital has been hit since the April ceasefire began. Crews are clawing through the debris of a leveled apartment building. The airstrike in a busy residential area of Beirut targeted a commander of Hezbollah's elite Radwan force. Israeli officials say the operation was necessary to stop planned attacks on their troops. However, the move is being viewed as a major escalation and a clear violation of the month-old truce. A class action lawsuit alleging WestJet did not have adequate harassment procedures and protocols is returning to court. It was put on hold in February when the judge said the plaintiffs did not have enough time to review the terms of the proposed settlement. Caroline Bargut has more on what the court will hear today.
You're fighting against Goliath here, and that's certainly what we experienced.
Mandalena Lewis is the lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit involving about 3,500 female flight attendants. She claims she was sexually assaulted by a WestJet pilot on a layover in Hawaii in 2010. The lawsuit alleges the airline failed its female employees by not having adequate anti-harassment policies in place between April 4, 2016 and February 28, 2021. Today, the judge will review a settlement a decade in the making.
If we are walking away from this and this is a finality that, we know that we fought till the very end for justice.
In February, WestJet offered to pay $4.5 million to class members, but admitted no liability under the terms of the proposed agreement. Lewis accepted WestJet's offer. Some class members did not. They will have 2 days to object in front of a judge who will ultimately decide if the case gets settled or goes to trial. Toby Goldback is an assistant professor at the University of British Columbia Peter A. Allard School of Law.
The class action mechanism has really taken on this role of addressing social justice issues where the regular, criminal law track or civil litigation has not been adequate to deal with these issues.
Goldback says cases like this should send a message to companies that there will be repercussions if they don't take sexual harassment seriously. Caroline Bargut, CBC News, Vancouver.
There is even more finger-pointing happening in Alberta as that province works to get to the bottom of a data breach involving voters' personal information. The CBC's Julia Wong has more on the political fallout.
First thing I did was call Jason Kenney and warn him.
Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi says he acted immediately after the party obtained a video it says shows an online meeting of a pro-separatist group demonstrating a database filled with the personal details of nearly 3 million Alberta voters. CBC News has not seen the video. Nenshi says former Alberta Premier Jason Kenney's name was searched and his personal information shown on screen.
We're not exactly BFFs. But I figured he deserved to know.
Kenney posted on social media saying it's disturbing his personal information is broadly available and says he's retaining legal counsel. Meanwhile,
Order.
The issue dominated question period Wednesday. Nenshi questioning Alberta Premier Danielle Smith on why UCP caucus staff at the meeting didn't alert police, and Smith on why Nenshi didn't reach out to the government when he found out about the database.
That's why he should have told us.
Why didn't the Premier's staff member tell her? Why didn't he tell anybody? And if he did tell the Premier and her Chief of Staff, why didn't they call the cops?
The member opposite should be ashamed of himself. People are sick of his antics. We know that he withheld this data because he wanted to turn it into a political stunt to play some kind of gotcha on the government.
Last week, a court ordered the voter database be pulled down. Both RCMP and Elections Alberta are investigating. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. For more information on the Hanta virus outbreak, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We've got some sunshine out there in downtown Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube. Welcome to Thursday. This half hour on the program, Premier Canoe is here for our regular monthly interview. We're going to talk about this recent survey where more than 80% of educators surveyed said class size and students' complexities and lack of support are primary concerns for them. Also, some students left the ledge and they left repeating negative slurs that they heard while they were there. How does the Premier feel about the speaker's banned words? We're going to find out. Stay with us, Canoe Live, in a moment. If you're watching the show, our camera shot from up on top of the roof is looks like the windows in my house. You know, it hasn't been, it needs a little bit of a wipe off from all the winter dust. But who's been outside to do that? It hasn't been nice enough, right? All right, let's get into what's happening with headlines. Heather Wells is in with some stories this morning. Hi.
Hi there. Well, opponents of a sand mining proposal for the Arm of Springfield say the CO Silica licensing process has been compromised by a trip involving the mining company and the province. It happened in April. A provincial bureaucrat took part in the same U.S. trade delegation to Philadelphia as CO Silica. The NDP government says it did not take part in any meetings with CO Silica in Philadelphia. The province is taking over operations of a town in Manitoba's Interlake. The council in Winnipeg Beach lost quorum after a city councillor resigned last week, and that left the already shorthanded council with just 2 members instead of the full complement of 5. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
With a brief look at a forecast that's better than yesterday, Abby.
Yeah, Marcy, I can just tell you it's zero across most of the regions in the southern part of the province right now with lots of sunshine, and we'll see highs hug around 11 degrees today before we get close to 16 degrees tomorrow.
0 doesn't sound that great.
Come
I
on,
was
Marcy.
waiting for more. I know. Abby this morning, Abby's had it. Everybody's like, Abby and Riley are walking around the CBC News Center like, okay, enough already. Messengers. Sierra, what's going on in the commute?
Well, don't blame the weatherman, blame the weather, I guess is what
go
you
on.
could say. A couple of things that have popped up in traffic here recently, enough where multiple people have called me about the same issue. I'll start with the first one. I heard from Dave, Kim, and Kevin. North Perimeter going westbound, there's an accident between Pipeline and McPhillips. And that you kind of start running into traffic just before that McPhillips overpass, and it is very slow moving there. So I had 3 people give me a call about that situation there. As well, I heard from Richard and Margaret about Sherbrooke. It is, Sherbrooke is being backed up all the way until Stafford, kind of. So it looks to be due to construction, but there might be another issue going on there. But if you were heading down Sherbrooke, it is very backed up, and it actually starts kind of when you're turning off of Stafford there to go on to Sherbrooke and heading towards that Maryland Bridge there. So something to keep an eye out. So a couple things to keep an eye out for, as well as that fire that crews I think are still dealing with there on Langside, closing Sargent in both directions between Yonge and Furby. Few things to keep an eye out, but if something new comes up or you have an update on any of these, give me a call. That number is 204-788-3093.
8:14 on CBC. Now, before we hear from the Premier, who's in studio listening, let's give him something to listen to. Wab Canoe is here. The Manitoba Teachers Society commissioned a survey of these educators in January and February this year. I just mentioned this. They said 81% of the educators who responded said class size, student complexities, lack of supports are big concerns. Nearly half said they have more than 6 students with complex needs in the class, up from less than a tenth in 2017. Before the news, if you were with us, you heard Leanne Gregorchuk, president of Local 3471, talking about educational assistance in the classrooms. That's who she represents.
Well, one thing, you increase EAs, you increase teachers, you increase funding to schools to support. Basically, there is some children that are not funded either that are coming into schools as well. And increasing EAs, yes, but also, for example, even the wage parity in Winnipeg itself, wages are much higher than in rural communities. Rural communities are suffering that way as well.
So those were some of her asks from the province for steps that could make things better in the class. Lillian Clausen, meantime, is president of Manitoba Teachers Society. Here's what she had to say.
So I've been a teacher in the Manitoba system for the last few decades. And I think if I go back 10 or 15 years ago, I was able to, as a classroom teacher, answer to the needs of all the students in my classroom. So I had a social worker and a psychologist who I could talk to. I had guidance counselors and resource teachers who would come and help me with the most complex needs in the classrooms. What we've seen recently is a real decline in the experts that we have on our teams in our classrooms to help with our students. And so the classroom teacher is now becoming all of those roles in the classroom. And when you do that, then you have less time for, say, students who maybe are struggling a little bit less and just need that little extra support.
So Premier Wab Canoe is here listening to all of this, and we appreciate you being here, Premier. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Now, Clausen acknowledges that recent increases from your government in funding have happened. She says that the money, of course, does not begin to make up for 10 years of cuts to school funding, so we do know that those things are factual. But how can your government work with school divisions to fill the gap, or would you look at a different way of funding classrooms given that that there's problems being
Well, with
highlighted?
7.5 years of cuts under the PCs, to be clear, we've increased funding every year we've been in place. But when it looks at a new funding model, ways to support kids, yeah, for sure we'll look at it.
Okay.
Anything we can do to help kids in the classroom would be big. And just as a bit of context also, talking about facts, we have added 1,600 educators. So there are about 800 more teachers in the classroom, 800 more EAs as well in classes across Manitoba. But I'll be the first to admit, yeah, we have an uphill task in front of us because the teachers need more support, the EAs need more resources. We need more of the clinicians too, speech language pathologists and everyone who's out there helping our kids. And most of all, it's about the children themselves, being able to learn whether they need more of the one-on-one support with some of the specialists and EAs, or they're the kids who are, maybe just focused on what the teacher has to say at a given time. But they need some encouragement as well, too. We want to support everyone.
So let's break this down in terms of a funding model. If funding goes to a school and then a principal or a school can decide where that goes, they could actually spend that on like busing or whatever. They could actually spend that in their budgets.
A lot of it would be the division.
I just want to back up though, because before...
A lot of it would be the division.
Okay, because before us 8, I learned this from the EA rep for the union. She said that it used to be that the funding would directly go, whether it comes through the division or the school, it would directly go to the kids with the needs. So you'd never have a kid that wasn't funded if they were in the school with the need. Is that the kind of changes that you would like to see so that there is enough money directly going to support the kids with complex needs, or what will you look at?
Respectfully, I would push back at an assertion that kids have been getting the support that they need historically in Manitoba. I do think there's a lot of kids with additional needs. Autism is something we're much more aware of, ADHD. And I don't think our society was doing a great job all throughout history of supporting neurodivergent kids. And I think that's one of the things we have to address. This is one of the things we have to correct for, is like a historic under recognition, under diagnosis for kids who need additional supports. And so, yeah, for sure, let's work together. I think school divisions, we want to be respectful. We've talked about this before. You deserve the local choice in terms of your school board trustees and how they're going to allocate resources. So they have a role to play. We, for sure, are very eager to play a partnership role in making sure that there's the funding for EAs and clinicians and help for kids, like I was saying, across all needs in the classroom. But also, I would say that there's a role for the federal government here as well, too. If we agree, and I think we do all agree, that there are greater needs for children in schools and children in the classroom, then when you look at things like the transfer payments to benefit social services, including education, to the provinces from the federal government, if we're doing more and if we have to meet the needs of the community with more services, I think the federal government should up the transfer payments that they provide to the provinces as well, too.
Should a parent ever have to come to school to pick up their kid because their kid has additional needs? I heard that's happening daily because there's not enough support for some of these kids.
Well, the kid should always have the support that they need to succeed in the classroom, is what I would say.
Dimitra Hadjiakos is president of Autism Manitoba, who was on yesterday. She's also director of the Autism Learning Center. She's a former teacher. She had some strong words for your party yesterday. This is what she said.
We have families who are really struggling. We have teachers who are burnt out. I don't see that empathy, and I do say this in good faith that party really needs to look at that. Families who are caring for children with special needs are crying out to this government for support, and what they're telling us on the television set is not what teachers and families are experiencing in their real life.
So when can parents start expecting to see changes in the classroom? Speaking to some of her criticism that, you might be saying something, but she's really eager for change, as she put people daily crying out.
Yeah, she sounds burnt out. And my heart goes out to parents and kids, most of all. I find, children, autistic children, kids with ADHD, other neurodivergent people in our society, really relatable, and my heart goes out. And I would encourage them, hey, you're going to be able to be the premier, prime minister, successful business person, sports, athlete, whatever it is you want to do, and we're going to help you. So what we've done this year is we've added $5 million. So there's a total of $30 million in autism supports funding in the province. And this is a significant increase. Up to now, it was 25.
Yeah, and with respect, Premier, the question was, when can they expect more change? Because they're saying more. They need more. That's a fair question.
$25 million has been the historic level of funding for autism supports in Manitoba. In this year's budget, we increased it by $5 million. So you're talking about a 20% increase in funding.
Within the school system? Does this have to do with the education, the support they get in the school system, or Autism Manitoba, the organization itself?
Autism Manitoba doesn't necessarily deliver the sort of services we're talking about. This is about service providers for kids who need this additional support. So in a budgetary landscape where 2%, 4% is considered notable, we're talking about a 20% 1 year increase. So I have a lot of compassion, and I want us to do better. And I think that's why I was saying even earlier on in this interview that I don't think our society has done a good job historically of meeting the needs of these families and meeting the needs of these children. So absolutely, there's a ton of empathy. And I think that more so than words, it's the action. And how does government take action? We allocate resources, and then we work with the service providers, such as St. Amant and others in this case, to deliver the needs, as well as the school divisions and EAs, so that kids can get the help to succeed.
We're going to have to move to another topic here. Let's listen to Tom Lindsay reacting to some school groups he had and what they had to say after watching Question Period.
Students asked what everyone was so angry about. Students asked why members are allowed to call each other names. Students said that it's very disrespectful for members to yell at each other and not to listen to who is talking. Students asked, isn't the point of those meetings to come together and talk about Manitoba? After one school group left the chamber, our staff overheard a number of students repeating an unkind heckle that they had heard in this house.
So people know, they've heard the news stories that Speaker Lindsay ruled some words are unparliamentary. He said racist, homophobe, transphobe, bigot, to name a few. NDP House Leader Nahanni Fontaine arguing those words are important to use in the legislative chamber when someone says something hurtful and insulting. What do you think of the ban of these words, Premier?
I think the most important thing that I'd share is that I accepted the apology of the person who said the racist comment towards me. I'm not going to repeat it on the radio because I don't want
people
kids to hear
can
this.
read about it. We have covered this, yes.
Well, have you covered it to the extent?
I watched the entire thing, of what was said to you,
think,
And I saw your press conference after saying your message in that was talking to kids who've had racial slurs to accept apology, but also to stand up for themselves.
Exactly. So, I think that's the most important thing is, if you're a child who's experienced something racism, you should call it out. You should say that was racist.
So
You're
how
being
complicated
racist.
is this then that Tom Lindsay said that in the House you can't?
Well, you can make your own conclusion. On the day that he ruled that somebody had said something racist, he made a statement that you can't say that something is racist. So, what I would say, these sorts of comments, racist or hateful to LGBT, they've been coming from one party, the PCs, and they've been leveled in one direction towards us. So they'll say something racist about me being Anishinaabe, and then I'll say in response, you guys cut healthcare. So then the conversation becomes decorum in the legislature. So, that's my view is if you're a child who's experienced racism, you're somebody who's expressing your gender identity in a certain way and people are hating you for that. 1, you should be free from that. 2, you should be able to call it out. And 3, you should forgive and accept the apology if somebody does try to atone and make amends. And that's what I did this week because I think it's important for Manitoba kids to see that even in the midst of some nastiness, you can hold your head high and you can be a positive example.
So let me ask you this. Is there something around the language piece of this? Because what would you say to the criticism that you're weaponizing the labels, that in haste to label something or say something is racist or homophobic, that you shut down valid debate? Is there a different way to call something out? Or would you push back and say, if it's racist, you're going to call it racist? And I think Lindsay's wrong here. We should be able to model what we want in society, if that's in fact what we want in society, which is to have people stand up, have people call something what it is. Where do you stand on that?
No one in Manitoba would read the comment that was said to me for being Anishinaabe and think it's okay. That's not up for debate. No one would say this anywhere else in our society. Same thing for our health minister, who is non-binary, and the leader of the PCs said something hateful to them about their gender. Like, it's not up for debate that it was hateful. The speaker himself said it was hateful.
So how much does it surprise you that after all of that exchange that the speaker would go down this path then?
I'm not surprised. I am just pointing out this is the nature of what gets reported on both by the speaker and the media as an issue of decorum, where somebody will say something hateful to me about being Anishinaabe, and I will say, you were an ineffective minister when you were in government, and then people throw up their hands and say lack of decorum.
But the lack of decorum was around the words that have been used, and maybe it is by others in your government.
Let's unpack that then. So do you disagree that what was said was racist?
Well, I am not going to weigh in here.
Why not?
Well, I'm not going to weigh in because I'm wondering if there's a difference in your view between saying you're racist out of something or what you have said is racist. How do you respond to that?
Well, what I would say to Manitobans
is that discussion still going to be in the House?
Well, first of all, I would encourage you to speak out about racism when you see it. And in this case, I don't think you're taking a side by saying this comment was racist, but I'll leave that with you. And what I would say to Manitobans is campaigning to be premier, I never talked about racism. Being in office for going on 3 years, I've never talked about racism. This is not my issue. I'm focused on healthcare. I'm focused on affordability.
But now you have a speaker
can I conclude my thought?
Yeah, please, go.
I am never somebody who's made racism the issue that I want to be affiliated with or that I want to earn my stripes on. I've always said I want to be known as the best premier Manitoba has ever had, and I want that to be judged by people looking at our performance on healthcare and on the economy. In this case, what was said is undeniably racist. And so that's why I'm talking about it.
And I'm not weighing in because my job's not to have an opinion.
No, but actually, I respectfully disagree.
Okay.
When something is a fact, does a media person or a journalist not have the ability, never mind the responsibility, to say that fact?
Well, I would ask, does your speaker then not have the responsibility? So what you're saying by effect is that Speaker Tom Lindsay is wrong. That there's a
100% he's wrong, but I'm also saying the
it's
media,
racist.
fresh off of reporting on climate change and anti-vaxxers,
Should be calling out things strongly as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think like the idea that both sides is, I don't think that interpretation of journalistic impartiality has been a benefit to our society. In fact, I think it's been very harmful.
I'll take
in
that
this
criticism.
case, it's not a criticism of you for the
No,
record.
but I'll take that criticism of media.
This is a criticism of the field. And what I would say is that when you have something that is undeniably racist, to the extent that the guy who said it, Wayne Owasco from Lactabani for the record, he was thrown out of the chamber. Was that reported? Have you mentioned that today? Like, this is an accountability interview for me for some reason, even though another MLA was thrown out of the chamber. And that's fine because no one knows who this other MLA is, and I'm the Premier of Manitoba. But my response to this issue being reported in public is this. What do we think is important as Manitobans? Respectful debate and democracy? For sure. But what is the precondition of a respectful debate and democracy? I would argue that you can enter into the chamber and no one's going to attack you for being a woman. No one's going to attack you for being a First Nations person. Nobody's going to attack you for being LGBT.
Yeah.
And in that case, then it's okay to call out people who violate those norms.
And I take your point. I do see it as accountability, though, on not necessarily on you, but accountability on the whole system that represents Manitobans and the decision by the chamber or by the speaker to go in this direction. Like, I think it's important for Manitobans to understand that because this kind of conversation is happening in our daily lives. These decisions are obviously...
Actually, I would disagree. So how
we're
is
totally pushing the news, Heather. I apologize.
No,
we'll
but how is this conversation happening in our daily lives? Is it up for debate in another workplace where if somebody says something racist that you say, hey, that's disrespectful and you shouldn't say that? If you say something against an LGBT person in the workplace. So why is it different for an MLA? Why is a PC MLA after this ruling allowed to say something racist at work or allowed to say something LGBT hateful at work?
Will you ask Tom Lindsay to reverse it?
I have.
We're going to leave it there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the Premier of Manitoba, Wab Canoe. Now let's go to our CBC Manitoba News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:32, it is 0 now in Winnipeg. We're warming up. We'll keep climbing to 11 in Winnipeg under a bright, sunny sky today. Sand mining opponents are upset a provincial bureaucrat took part in the same U.S. trade delegation as mining company CO Silica. A CO Silica executive and a Manitoba deputy minister went to Philadelphia in April for a World Trade Center business conference. 3 other businesses and 4 other organizations took part. Tanji Bell, who chairs a group opposed to sand mining in the arm of Springfield, says it shouldn't have happened while the province is reviewing a CO Silica license application.
Our elected officials and the public servants have to be the better people in all of this, and they can retract themselves from it.
Bell says the licensing process now is compromised. The NDP government says it did not take part in any meetings with CO Silica in Philadelphia. Well, fire crews remain on the scene of a West End house fire this hour. They have been in the 500 block of Langside since before 5 this morning. Still no word whether anyone was in the house at the time, but we can tell you Sargent has now reopened, but Langside is still closed between Yonge and Furby. The provincial government is going to appoint an administrator to oversee the operations of Winnipeg Beach. That Interlake town's council lost quorum after Councillor Doug Jarvis resigned last week. That left the already shorthanded council with just 2 members instead of 5. Pam Jackson was the mayor of Winnipeg Beach until 2024. She says some of the 1,500 people who live in the resort town feel they've been left in the dark.
Unfortunately, over the last number of months, there's been no open discussion on council. I think meetings have been less than a half an hour, and I believe that most discussion is happening behind closed doors. So we really don't know what the issues are. We really don't know why Councillor Jarvis felt like he had to walk away.
The province says it is still working to confirm the administrator's appointment. It will remain in place until a new council is sworn in after the town's regularly scheduled election on July 24th. Prime Minister Mark Carney is defending plans to change the process for approving natural resource projects, including pipelines. Ottawa wants to make it faster and easier to get the green light.
The important thing is that we respect the law, and the designation requires consultations in advance of designation. We're moving forward at speed, but we're doing it in the right way.
Carney says his government is consulting First Nations, provinces and territories and other stakeholders. The change would apply to all projects, not just the one the government's priority has on its priority list. And a pair of Manitoba bowlers are national champions. Logan Newton and Tanner Barber winning gold in the senior boys doubles division at the Youth Bowl Canada National Championships in Winnipeg. Barber says the victory was extra special after years of competing against Newton before finally making the provincial team together.
So satisfying to finally get it done. We've been trying to make a provincial team for the longest time now, and I've been coming silver to him for years and years and years. And now I finally get to be on a team with them, and we got the job done.
The pair's path to victory got a big boost on Tuesday when Newton rolled just the second 450-point perfect game in the 62-year history of the Nationals. You can find more on all those stories, as well as the latest news as it develops through the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells in our news center this morning. A last look at traffic now with Sierra Sanders.
Hi, Marcy. Yeah, another big story that's been going on here in the last hour or so. I got a call from many people. The North Perimeter heading westbound. There was an accident between Pipeline and McPhillips. I got a call back from Kevin, apologies. He said that there was a tow truck on scene and they looked to be clearing it. So hopefully that is out of your way there.
All right, Abby.
Yeah, the province is really going to be enjoying some clear conditions and sunshine today. The southern part of the province, we're seeing zeros and sunny conditions, warming up close to 13. Winnipeg, we get to 11 today. We're currently at 0.
Thank you, Abby. Also, big thanks to folks that put the show together. Sierra Sanders, of course, Abby Adiemi and Darren Marash. Also, some of our associate producers, Emily Enns, working on items in the program today. Also, Sophia Peralta-Barone. Our producers are Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez. Our news team this morning. We have Megan Ketchison and Heather Wells out there who's been on the program all morning, as well as Aaron Broman this morning. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Coming up on the noon call-in between 12:30 and 1, decorum in politics. Pardon me, was that yesterday? I don't have a new topic, pardon me, but between 12:30 and 1, be sure to join host Marjorie Dalhouse, who will be asking you to weigh in. The Current's coming up next.